The Preface of Uncle Remus Returns. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Phil Chenevert. Uncle Remus Returns by Joel Chandler Harris. Preface. The stories included in this volume appeared during 1905 to 1906 in the Metropolitan Magazine. They are told by Uncle Remus, but the little boy who listens to them is the son of the little boy of the early volumes. He is visiting his grandmother, Miss Sally, on the plantation where his father grew up, and in his turn has become the devoted follower of the old darky. It was the intention of the author to continue this series and to gather the stories eventually into a fifth volume of Uncle Remus Tales, but his editorial duties on the Uncle Remus magazine absorbed most of the energy of his last 2 years, and the projected volume was not completed. It seems a pity that these delightful tales from the lips of the children's dear old friend, Uncle Remus, should lie forgotten between the pages of a magazine, so they have been brought together in company with some character sketches of the old man who recounted them. The brief but vivid and amusing glimpses of Uncle Remus's personality contained in the latter may serve as a slight but suggestive background for the tales themselves, and thus afford a touch of realism to the fantastic legends so dear to the hearts of primitive people. May the friends of Uncle Remus, old and young, find something of the familiar humor and charm in the stories thus presented, for they are indeed Uncle Remus's Farewell Tales. Joel Chandler Harris, March 1918. End of Preface. Chapter 1 of Uncle Remus Returns. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Phil Chenevert. Uncle Remus Returns by Joel Chandler Harris. Brother Rabbit's Bear Hunt. The little boy had naturally a good deal of that simple faith that is one of the most beautiful characteristics of childhood, but his training had been to some extent along the lines marked out in certain periodicals that contain departments in which mothers are instructed how to deal with children, and in which sage advice is given by young men and young women under names not their own as to the training of youngsters. Young as he was, the little boy had been denied pretty much all the romance that belongs to childhood. For him, the beautiful story of Santa Claus, with all the associations that belong thereto, had been shattered. The grandmother deplored it, and wept over it during the long watches of the night. But you know about these grandmothers with their antiquated ideas and their old-fashioned notions. The mother had been caught in the net laid for the ignorant by so-called scientists, and she regarded her own views, which were far from being her own, as of the utmost importance. The youngster yearned to believe the tales told by Uncle Remus, but his mother managed to keep the wings of his imagination clipped as close as those of a chicken that we desire to keep from flying over the garden fence. One thing about the stories that he failed to understand was the remarkable success of Brother Rabbit in keeping out of trouble. He was obliged to identify Uncle Remus's Brother Rabbit with the rabbits that he saw occasionally on the plantation, and they were not only weak, but seemed to be very stupid. They had neither claws, nor tushes, nor strength of limb. He asked his mother about it, and she gave him an explanation that he had no desire to hear. He asked his grandmother, and she laughingly referred him to Uncle Remus. "He can tell you about it much better than I can," she said. Thus it happened that the little boy was compelled to fall back on the most gifted fabulist that the plantation had ever known. He laid his puzzle before Uncle Remus one afternoon when the old negro had just finished his dinner, and was therefore in a very good humor. Apparently the child had some difficulty in making clear to Uncle Remus the nature of his doubts, but after a while he seemed to understand what the youngster wanted to know. To make sure, however, Uncle Remus stated the case as he understood it in his own simple way.
If I ain't mighty much mistoken, honey, you want to know how come Brer Rabbit can outdo de yuther creeturs when he ain't got no tushes, ner no claws,
And not much strength. The old negro's eyes twinkled as he looked at the little boy.
Well, that's the very identical thing that the tales is all about.
Look like he was born little, so he can cut up capers and play pranks no matter whereabouts you put him at. What he can't do with his foots, he can do with his head. And when the head get him in trouble that's deeper than what he counted on, he puts his pendants in his foots, 'cause that's whar he keeps his lippity-clip and his blippity-blick. The little boy brightened up, for it was the purely pictorial language that Uncle Remus sometimes used that appealed to his sense of the fitness of things.
"'Tain't been mo' dan a good half hour ago,"
Uncle Remus casually remarked,
"dat I was laughin' fit ter kill 'bout de way Brer Rabbit done when he went b'ar huntin'.
He sho had his fun, no matter if he went huntin' or fishin', but when he tuck a notion fer ter go a huntin' ol' Brer B'ar, he had mo' fun dan you kin shake a stick at. Some folks might not 'a' like dat kinder fun what you kin have when you go b'ar huntin'. Brer Rabbit wuz monst'us fond un it, 'kaze de kinder huntin' what he done wuz a mighty quare kind, an' de fun what he git outen it wuz de kind what makes him laugh twel he can't stand up no mo' dan a week ol' baby. But la, I speck I done made yo' mammy mad by tellin' you deze ol' timey tales so much. She look mighty hard at me yistiddy when I went up dar an' ask Miss Sally fer ter gi' me a piece er poun' cake if she had any lef over fum las' Christmas." "Why, Christmas has been gone so long that I had almost forgotten it," said the little boy.
"Dat's so,"
Uncle Remus assented,
"but we'll hatter whirl in an' have another one 'fo' de year's out. By dat time you'll be gone back home, an' me an' Miss Sally will have sump'n dat's got mo' claws an' mo' color dan plain sillybug."
There was a long pause, during which Uncle Remus watched the youngster out of the corner of his eye. Presently the little fellow stirred uneasily, and then made this statement: "I don't see why Brother Rabbit wanted to go bear hunting. He would be in a worse fix when he caught the bear than he was when he hit and kicked the tar baby." Uncle Remus laughed heartily.
"I speck yo' pa done gone an' tole you 'bout de tar baby.
Ol' Brer Rabbit sho was in a mighty close place dat time, but if you take notice, he ain't stay dar long. No, sah, not him." "But Uncle Remus," exclaimed the child, "why did he want to hunt the bear? I don't see how he showed his sense by doing such a thing as that. He ought to have known better." "Well, honey, you ain't got no needs fer ter pester yo'se'f wid de ups an' downs er ol' Brer Rabbit. Ef he got sense, an' ef he ain't got none, it don't make no diffunce now, 'kaze de ol' times is done gone, an' ef 'twasn't fer deze ol' tales, nobody wouldn't know dat dey wuz ever any ol' times." Saying which, Uncle Remus filled his after-dinner pipe and turned to his unfinished task, whatever it was. But the little boy was by no means satisfied to let the matter go at that. He wanted to know why Brother Rabbit hunted Brother Bear, and how the hunt ended, and he was so persistent about it that the old negro was compelled to tell him the story in self-defense.
"There was one time," said Uncle Remus, "when de creeturs had laid by de craps, and dey ain't got nothin' fer to do but to set down on a log and chaw de tobacco and tell all dey knowed and lots mo' besides. One day, Brer Rabbit was gwine down de road des to be a gwine, when who should he meet but Brer Fox and Brer Wolf. Dey was amblin' and a ramblin' 'long tergedder, des as chummy as you please, laughin' and talkin', and ol' Brer Rabbit jined in wid um. Atter while dey sot down by de side er de road and got ter talkin' 'bout de neighbors and 'bout de dull times in gineral. Brer Fox say dey ain't nothin' 'tall gwine on, no parties, no picnics, and no barbecues. Brer Wolf says he's a ole settled man, and he ain't keerin' much fer parties and dem kinder doin's, but he likes fer ter see young folks 'joy derse'fs whiles dey young and supple. Brer Rabbit, he up an' 'low dat dey ain't no dull times wid him, 'kaze it look like he got sump'n ruther fer ter do eve'y minute er de day, whether he's at home or whether he's abroad. Brer Wolf, he ax, "What you doin' right now?" An' den he look at Brer Fox and wunk one eye. He wunk mighty quick, but not quick enough fer ter keep Brer Rabbit from ketchin' a glim un it. Brer Rabbit wipe his mouf sorter slow like, and look up at de clouds floatin' by. He 'low, he did, "Well, frien's, ef I hadn't 'a' seed you all, I'd 'a' been well on my way fer ter look at my fish traps, an' dat done, I'd 'a' come 'roun' by my turkey blind. I ain't got too much time nohow you kin fix it, an' when I does set down, it's a thrip ter a ginge cake dat I draps ter sleep 'fo' anybody kin head me off." Brer Wolf say, "Wid me, it's diffunt. When I lay by my crop, I allers take a little recess an' pass de time er day wid my neighbors." Brer Rabbit 'low, "Dat's what make me stop here a little minnit. When I gets home, my ole 'oman is sho to ask me who I seed an' what dey say, an' how wuz der folks an' der famblies. You know how de wimmen is. Dey'll tantalize de life out'n you twel you tells um who you seed an' what dey had on. But me, I ain't got time fer ter tarry. I'm a fixin' up fer ter go on a big b'ar hunt termorrer, an' it's a gwine ter take up all my time fer ter git good an' ready. My ole 'oman been beggin' me not ter go. She says she's all of a trimble, she's so skeered I'll git hurted somehow or somewhar. But dat's de way er de wimmen. Dey make out dey are monst'us skeery, but when you fetch de game home, dey allers ready fer ter clean an' scour it an' fix it up fer de table." When Brer Rabbit say dis, Brer Fox and Brer Wolf flung back der heads an' laugh fit ter kill. Brer Rabbit, he 'low, "Frien's, what's de joke? Be sociable an' let me laugh wid you." Says Brer Wolf, sezee, "We a laughin', Brer Rabbit, 'kaze you say you gwine b'ar huntin'. You know mighty well dat you ain't big enough fer ter ketch no b'ar. Why, I'm lots bigger dan what you is, an' I'd think twice 'fo' I started out fer ter hunt Brer B'ar." Brer Rabbit, he kinder smole one of his old time smiles. He 'low, he did, "Yes, Brer Wolf, you a lots bigger dan what I is, but will you an' Brer Fox head 'im off ef I git 'im on de run?" Brer Fox, he up an' spoke, sezee, "You git 'im on de run, Brer Rabbit, an' we'll head 'im off. I promise you dat much. We'll head 'im off ef you git 'im on de run." Brer Rabbit 'low, "It's a bargain, then, an' we'll shake hands on it." It wuz a law 'mong de creeturs dat when dey make a bargain an' shook hands on it, dey wasn't no way er gittin' 'roun' it. An' so when Brer Rabbit make um shake hands wid 'im, Brer Wolf an' Brer Fox both know dat ef der wuz any b'ar hunt, dey'd hatter be on han' fer ter head 'im off when Brer Rabbit got 'im on de run. Dey shook hands, but dey ain't give Brer Rabbit as hard a grip as dey mought, 'kase dey ain't had no notion er gettin' in a sho' 'nuff b'ar hunt. Dat 'uz one er de kinder things what dey wasn't in de habits er doin'. Dey kinder had de idee dat Brer Rabbit wuz des a braggin', but when he make um shake hands, dey 'gun to feel sorter skittish, yet dey wa'n't no gettin' roun' de bargain what dey done shuck hands on. Brer Rabbit ain't stay so mighty long atter dat. He say he gotter go an' make all his 'rangements fer ter bag de game an' ter barbecue it atterwards. He flipped Brer Wolf an' Brer Fox his so long, an' ax um fer ter meet 'im at de same place de nex' day. "Meet me right here, frien's," says ol' Brer Rabbit, sezee, "an' I'll show you sump'n dat'll kinder stir you up an' make you feel like dat dey's sump'n gwine on 'roun' here same ez what dey is in de j'inin' country, where dey hunt b'ar every day in de year 'cep' Sunday. Dey say dey'll be dar ef nothin' don't happen, an' dey ax Brer Rabbit what must dey fetch fer ter help him out, an' he 'spon' dat all he want um ter do is ter head Brer B'ar off when he git 'im on de run. "I'll show you whar ter take yo' stan'," says ol' Brer Rabbit, sezee, "an' all in de roun' worl' you gotter do is ter stan' yo' groun' an' not git skeered when you see 'im comin', an' make a little fuss like you gwine ter ketch 'im. But you don't hatter put your hand on 'im. I'll do all de ketchin' dat's gwineter be done. All I ax you is ter stan' whar I'll show you an' make out like you gwineter help me. All you got ter do is 'zactly what you say you'll do. Head 'im off when you see 'im comin'." Brer Rabbit went down de road singin' one er de ol' time chunes, an' Brer Wolf an' Brer Fox sot whar he lef um an' look at one another. Atter while, ol' Brer Wolf sezee, "What de name er goodness you reckon he's up to?" Brer Wolf grinned one er dem ar grins what make cold chills run up an' down yo' back. He 'low, he did, "He's des tryin' fer ter fool us. He done got de idee dat we er scared. Ef we go dar, he'll say he's mighty sorry dat he ain't fin' Brer B'ar, an' ef we don't go dar, he'll laugh an' tell it everywhar dat we was feared fer ter stan' up to our part er de bargain." Ol' Brer Fox grinned his kinder grin an' sezee, "We'll be dar, sho." At this point Uncle Remus paused to indulge in a hearty laugh, and it was some little time before he resumed. He laughed so long, indeed, that the little boy was moved to ask him what he found that was so funny. This inquiry seemed to have no effect on the old negro. He continued to laugh, and when he could laugh no more, he chuckled, all the time watching the little boy, although he pretended to be looking in another direction. Finally, however, he became more serious and settled himself in the attitude he always assumed when telling a story. "Well, suh, Brer Rabbit went down de road a piece, an' got off in de bushes, an' lay down an' des roll over an' over wid laughin'. Bimeby he lay right still, an' a little bird settin' up in de tree holler out, 'Run here, run here!' N'er bird say, 'What de matter? What de matter?' De fust bird make answer, 'Brer Rabbit dead, Brer Rabbit dead.' T'er bird say, 'Don't you b'lieve it, don't you b'lieve it.' Brer Rabbit lay dar, he did, twel he got good an' rested, an' bimeby he jump up an' crack his heels tergedder an' put out fer home like de booger man wuz atter him. He went home, he did, an' split up some kindlin' fer his ol' 'oman fer ter git supper wid, an' frail out 4 er his chillun, an' den he sot in de shade an' smoke his seegyar. Atter he done e't his supper, he comb his har, an' tuck down his walkin' cane, an' put out thoo de woods fer ter go ter de place whar Brer B'ar live at. He got dar atter so long time, en hello de house, en ole Brer B'ar come shufflin' out en ax him in. Ole Miss B'ar sot out de cheers, atter dustin' um wid her apron, en Brer B'ar en ole Brer Rabbit sot dar en corn-fab des like two ole cronies. Atter while, Brer Rabbit ax Brer B'ar ef he hear de latest news, en Brer B'ar say he don't speck he is, 'kaze he ain't went out much. He been so busy cleanin' de grass out'n his roastin' near patch. Brer Rabbit pull his mustaches en look at Brer B'ar right hard. He 'low, he did, "Well, suh, dere's big news floatin' 'roun'. Brer Wolf en Brer Fox, dey say some un been gettin' in der roastin' near patch, en dey say dey done seed some tracks in dar what look mighty suspicious, mo' speshually when dey got on de fur seein' specks." Ole Brer B'ar sorter shuffle his foots en cross his legs. He say, "What did dey do den? Whyn't dey follow up deze tracks where dey seed so plain?" Brer Rabbit 'low, sezee, "It seems like dey knowed purty well where de tracks wuz gwine ter lead um, en dey wuz feared fer ter follow um, less'n dey had mo' company fer ter come wid um." Ole Brer B'ar lean down, he did, en knock de ashes out'n his pipe, en den he look at Brer Rabbit en grin till his mouf look red en hot. He say, "Feared fer ter follow de tracks, wuz dey? Well, you can't blame um much, mo' speshually ef dey knowed de tracks. What dey gwine do 'bout it? Dey ain't gwine ter set down en let de roastin'-ears walk off down de lane, is dey?" Brer Rabbit kinder helt his head on one side en look at Brer B'ar. He 'low, sezee, "I wuz des comin' ter dat, Brer B'ar, when you broke in on me. De news what I hear is dat Brer Wolf en Brer Fox is gwine ter have a big b'ar hunt. Dey done sont de invites ter some er de neighbors, en de neighbors will do de drivin' whiles dey does de ketchin'. Dey ax me ef I wouldn't help do de drivin', en I tole um dat I'd be mo' dan glad." Brer B'ar look hard at Brer Rabbit, en Brer Rabbit look at de fireplace. "You said dat? You said you'd be mo' dan glad?" says ole Brer B'ar, sezee. Brer Rabbit, he 'low, "I mos' sho'ly did. I tole um dat I'd git you started, en den dey kin do de ketchin'." Ole Brer B'ar laugh, en when he do dat, it soun' like thunder a grumblin' way out in de hills. He say, sezee, "How much of a fambly is dey got, Brer Rabbit?" En Brer Rabbit, he 'spon', sezee, "I can't tell you, Brer B'ar, 'kaze I ain't neighbored wid um fer de longest. I don't like um, en dey don't like me, en dat's de reason dat I come fer ter tell you de news. I had de idee dat maybe you'd like fer ter take part in dis big b'ar hunt dat dey gwine ter have." Brer B'ar kinder scratch his head en lick his paw fer ter slick over de place. He say, sezee, "It seems like I'm bleeze ter be dar, 'kaze ef I ain't, der won't be no fun 'tall." Well, den dey sot dar, dey did, en lay der plans, en laugh fit ter kill at de ole jokes dat dey swapped wid one anudder en de ole tales dey told. Dey sot dar, dey did, twel ole Miss B'ar hatter come in en tell um, fer goodness sakes, ter go ter bed, 'kaze ef dey sot up en went on dat way, dey won't be no sleepin' fer her en de chillun. Brer Rabbit jump up when he hear dis, en tell um all good night, en put out fer home, en when he got dar he can't git ter bed fer laughin'. Ole Miss Rabbit, she stuck her head out fum under de kiver, en 'low, "What de name er goodness is de matter? You sho'ly mus' be a heerd sump'n outdacious in yo' rambles, en now dat you done woke me up, you des ez well ter tell me 'bout it." But ole Brer Rabbit, he's dat tickled dat he can't fish up de words fer ter tell her. All he kin do is ter laugh en cough en wheeze en sneeze, en keep dis up twel it look like he bleeze ter strankle er git smiflicated. But you better believe that old Miss Rabbit sot up with him twel she find out all about it. And she ain't laugh when he tell her. She shook her head and 'low, "You keep on wid yo' foolishness twel some er dem yuther creeturs will ketch you in yo' own trap, and den what me and de chilluns gwine do?" Ol' Brer Rabbit laugh and say dat dere's been widders and orphans ever sence de world gwine to roll. Now Brer Rabbit done tell Brer Wolf and Brer Fox dat de b'ar hunt wuz gwine to come off bright and early, and dat dey mus' be dar whar he lef 'em at, and sho' 'nuff, when he went down de road, dar dey was. He knowed dat dey'd been talkin' 'bout him, 'kaze dey look right sheepish when he come up behind um. He ax um is dey ready, and dey say dey is, and he tell um fer ter come on, 'kaze dey ain't got no time fer ter lose ef dey gwine ter git any b'ar meat dat day. Dey went 'long, dey did, but when dey get to whar de bushes wuz thick and de shadders black, Brer Wolf and Brer Fox kinder hung back. Brer Rabbit sees dis, and he says he hope dey ain't no ways bashful, 'kaze ef dey gwine ter help him ketch de b'ar, dey got ter stand up like dey're well, and not be droopy like dey're sick. Bimeby, dey come to de place where dey wuz a blind path runnin' thoo de woods, and Brer Rabbit, he say dat he want um ter stan' right dar, and ef de b'ar come by, dey wuz ter help him ketch 'im. Says ol' Brer Rabbit, sezee, "I'm hopin' dat I'll ketch 'im 'fo' he gits dis fur, and ef he does, I'll holler, and ef he's too quick fer me, ef he gits de idee dat I'm atter him, and starts ter run 'fo' I gits my han' on 'im, mo' dan likely he'll come dis way. Ef he do, des stan' yo' groun', 'kaze I'll be right behind 'im. Just make out like you gwine ter grab 'im, and hol' on ter 'im twel I kin git 'im, and den our day's work will be done." Brer Wolf and Brer Fox say dey'll do des like Brer Rabbit tell um, and dey took der places. Wid dat, Brer Rabbit went lopin' thoo de woods des as gaily as a race hoss. De place whar Brer Rabbit make um take der stand wasn't so mighty fur from de place whar ol' Brer Rabbit live at, and 'twasn't skacely no time 'fo' Brer B'ar wuz on de run, wid Brer Rabbit close behind him. Brer Fox and Brer Wolf hear a mighty racket gwine on in de woods, des like a hurricane wuz a churnin' up de leaves and de trash, and mos' 'fo' dey know it, here come Brer B'ar wid Brer Rabbit close behind him. Dey'd 'a' got outer de way, but dey hear Brer Rabbit holler, "Head 'im off dar! Head 'im off! Hol' 'im twel I git dar!" Ol' Brer B'ar wuz a comin' like a pot a bilin'. His mouf wuz wide open, and his tongue hangin' out, and de blue smoke riz from him eve'y time he fetched a pan. Brer Wolf and Brer Fox stood de groun', 'kaze dey feared dat Brer Rabbit would have de laugh on um ef dey broke and run. Dey stood dar, dey did, and do like dey wuz gwine ter ketch Brer B'ar. He come on wid his head down and his breff comin' hot, and as he run, he fetched Brer Wolf a swipe wid one han', and Brer Fox a wipe wid t'other han'. "Well," said Uncle Remus, looking hard at the little boy, "dey ain't no use fer ter go on wid dis tale. De swipe dat Brer B'ar fetched 'im come mighty nigh takin' out de vitals, and ef you never is hear holler'n befo', you mought 'a heerd it den. But Brer B'ar, he kep' on a runnin' wid Brer Rabbit atter him, and as dey run, dey laugh fit ter kill, and from dat day to dis, Brer Wolf and Brer Fox been givin' ol' Brer B'ar all de elbow room dat he needs by day er by night."
Did Brother Bear hurt them very much?" asked the little boy.
Hurt 'em? Why, he ripped open de hides from year.
Chapter 2 of Uncle Remus Returns by Joel Chandler Harris. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Phil Chenevert. Impty-Umpty and the Blacksmith. Late one afternoon, when the little boy was trying his best to slip up behind Uncle Remus and frighten him with a big boo, he heard noises that caused him to pause in his tracks and listen with all his ears. The sound he heard was the voice of the old man, and he seemed to be in deep distress. Apparently something had happened that the child had not heard of. It was something serious, too, for although the old man was explaining something to someone in a low tone, he frequently paused to sigh and groan. The child's sympathy was aroused to such an extent that he forgot or forbore to put in execution the plan he had in mind when he started to the cabin. After listening a while in a futile effort to discover the nature of the trouble, he boldly entered the door and looked around the room, which, for the lack of windows, was not very well lighted. He was surprised to find that the old man was alone, and more surprised still to find that he was gazing at the rafters with a smile of satisfaction on his weather-beaten features. "What is the matter, Uncle Remus?" asked the child. "Matter!" exclaimed the old man. "Dey may be something de matter wid you, honey, but dey ain't nothin' 'tall de matter wid me." "Why, I heard you talking to someone and groaning. That's the way people do when they have trouble." "If I was talkin' to anybody, dey must 'a' slipped out when you slipped in. If dey ain't done dat, dey're here right now. Ez for groanin', dat's about all dat folks kin do when dey gets as old as what I is. By good rights, dey oughter groan every time dey draws der breath." "But you were groaning just as though you had a terrible pain, and needed some of the medicine that mother gives to me when I have a stomach ache." "De ailment what I had, honey, was some'ers on de right-hand side of my mind. When I got word from a little bird dat you was comin' down here fer to slip up on me and skeer me, it put me in mind of de time when yo' pappy was about yo' age, and den I got to ramblin' back twel my 'membunce hit me a whack dat come mighty nigh knockin' me flat. Sump'n up an' said dat one er de tales what I told him in dem days was de wrong thing. Yasser, de wrong thing. Dat 'uz when you hear me talkin' and groanin'. I dunno how I gwine ter git to feelin' much better less'n somebody up dar at de big house sends me some er de truck what gives you de stomach ache, resins and mince pies and apple dumplin's. It makes me right hongry when I think about tellin' yo' pappy de wrong thing when he wa'n't nothin' but a little bit er chap. But I done de best I knowed how." "What tale was it, Uncle Remus?" the little boy inquired. "'Twa'n't needer mo' ner less dan dat ole time tale about Impty-Umpty and de Blacksmith. I gun it out des ez 'twuz gun to me, but 'twuz de wrong thing, and de wrong thing can't be made de right thing. Anybody'll tell you dat." "Impty-Umpty?" exclaimed the child. "Why, what is that?" "It's des somebody's name," said Uncle Remus with a sigh. "Some folks call him one thing and some an'er. Ain't you never hear yo' pappy talk about him?" "No, I never did," replied the little boy. "Not when he drap his collar button on de flo' and it roll way under de bureau?" The child shook his head solemnly. "Is you right sho' you ain't heard him call a name when he can't find de button?" persisted the old man, leaning back in his chair. He laughed heartily when he saw the light of comprehension dawning in the child's eyes. "Ole Impty-Umpty has got mo' names than yo' kin count on yo' fingers. Some calls him Satan, some calls him de Ole Boy, some calls him Kloots, an' some calls him what yo' pappy do, an' he answers to all un um. An' dere's times off an' on when he'll come long 'fo' you call him. Fum what I hear, he's been about de busiest creetur dat y'ever run about wid two behime legs an' a tail to boot. Well,
De tale what I done gone an' tole yo' pappy 'bout ole Impty-Umpty an' de blacksmith wuz de wrong thing, an' I dunno whedder ter writin' it wid him er wid you. It seems like you're de handiest, yet ef I writin' it wid you, I'll hatter git yo' promise fer ter writin' it wid him." The little boy was enthusiastic in making the promise, so much so that Uncle Remus was compelled to wipe an untimely smile from his mouth, using the back of his hand for the purpose. He seemed to be in no hurry to "righten things," however, for instead of beginning the story at once, he leaned his head against the wall as though he were about to take a nap, this being his favorite attitude when he wanted to doze. The little boy was not as impatient as his father had been under the same circumstances. He sat perfectly quiet, awaiting the good pleasure of Uncle Remus. Peeping from under his eyelashes, the old negro was again compelled to employ the back of his hand to smother a smile. This seemed to arouse him. "I ain't been 'sleep, is I? How fur did I get wid de tale?" "Why, you didn't even begin to tell it," said the child. "Well, suh!" exclaimed Uncle Remus, with well-feigned surprise. "Now, ain't dat too much? One thing I notices, and dat ain't two, I notices dat de mo' Andy Dominoes what crawls over me, de bigger my forgettin's gits. An' I bound it'll come to dat pass dat time will come when I'll forget to eat. An' dey ain't nobody dat I knows on dat's gwine ter come 'long an' put vittles in my mouf, dat's what." The little boy said not a word in response to this, nor did he smile. The trouble with him was that he was inclined to take Uncle Remus too seriously. This made the old man more solemn than he would have been otherwise, but he began very bravely, in spite of his fear that the simple tale he had to tell would fail to appeal to a youngster who had nearly all his mischievousness trained away under the modern system of parental instruction. "One time," said Uncle Remus, "not yistiddy nor de day befo', but way back yonder in de days when folks knowed lots mo' and a heap less dan what dey knows now, der wuz a blacksmith what had his shop at de big crossroads. It seem like dat if folks wuz gwine anywhere or comin' back, dey bleeze ter pass dish yer blacksmith shop. 'Tain't make no diffunce whar dey gwine or whar dey comin' fum, de blacksmith an' his shop wuz right sprang on de road. Time an' time ag'in, some un um 'd set right flat on de groun' an' try ter figger out how an' why 'twuz dat dey hatter pass dis shop, no matter which way dey started nor which way dey come back. Dey figgered an' figgered, but 'tain't do um a grain er good. In due time, dey'd hear a whangin' an' a clangin', an' when dey look up, dar wuz de shop, lookin' red inside on 'count de fier, an' dar wuz de bellers a wheezin' an' a snortin', an' de big sledge hammer a bangin' on de anvil twel it look like it'd bust wide open. No diffunce what road dey took, dey'd hatter pass de shop, an' ef dey passed de shop, dey'd hatter see de red light a shinin' an' hear de sledge hammer a bangin'. De shop got so het up in de daytime dat it helt de heat all night, an' de blacksmith ain't been workin' dar long 'fo' ol' Brer Rabbit find out dat ef he want ter git warm an' feel good, all he had ter do wuz ter creep un de do' an' set by de fier an' nod. In dem days folks had a better 'pinion er de creeturs dan what dey got now, an' dey wuz mo' familious wid dem dan dey is now. But de blacksmith wuz so big an' strong dat he sot everybody an' a kin a pattern. He wasn't scared er de biggest creetur dat come 'long, let 'im be rhinosy hoss or hippopotamus. As fer Brer Rabbit, he wa'n't nowhar. He wuz lots bigger in dem days dan what he is now, but he wa'n't no match in muscle fer de man what been slingin' de sledge hammer. So dar 'twuz, de blacksmith with big arms an' strong legs, an' ol' Brer Rabbit with nothin' but a long head an' big years. Ol' Brer Rabbit had a mighty habit er settin' up late at night. He'd set up so late, a playin' his pranks and cuttin' up his capers, that when he woke up the next mornin' he was e'en about as sleepy as he had been the night before, and dey was times when he ain't wake up twel he hear de blacksmith fumblin' at de door. An' mo' speshually, dey was one time when de blacksmith walked right in on him and foun' him settin' up close to de place where de fire done been at. Stidder shooin' Brer Rabbit away like he oughter done ef he ain't want him dar, de blacksmith flung a hammer at him, an' ef it 'a' hit him, dey wouldn't 'a' been enough of him lef fer ter stop a hole in a chigger's house. But Brer Rabbit dodged de hammer and went scootin' to de brier patch where he born and bred at. He went out dar, he did, an' felt of hisse'f all over fer ter see ef he was all dar, an' den when he find out dat he was, he jump up and crack his heels toge'rr and wunk one eye like somebody done tell 'im a great secret. He sot out dar in de brier patch and study what he gwine do nex', an' 'long 'bout dat time, who should come 'long dat way but ole man Billy Rickerson Dickerson. Knowin' Brer Rabbit long an' well, he stop fer ter pass de time er day an' ax de news, an' he ain't been dar long 'fo' Brer Rabbit tol' 'im many a long tale dat nobody ain't never hear befo'. By de time he wuz ready fer ter sing out his so long, Brer Rabbit ax him ef he'll do a favor fer one er his ol' time frien's, an' Mr. Rickerson Dickerson 'low dat he will. "Well, den," says ol' Brer Rabbit, sezee, "when you er passin' de blacksmif shop, des poke yo' head in de do' an' say, 'Friend, you'll have company soon,' an' de nex' passerby you meet, tell 'im to do de same." Well, sir, de word went 'roun', an' 'twa'n't long 'fo' everybody dat come by de blacksmif shop had de same sayin' in der mouf: "Friend, you have company soon." An' dis sot de blacksmif ter studyin'. He ax hisse'f what dey all mean by dat, an' it got so atter while dat he put de hot iron on de anvil an' let it git stone col' befo' he hit a lick wid de hammer. He wuz so worried dat he can't sleep at night, an' de nigh neighbors wondered when dey hear de bellers a snortin' an' de hammer a bangin'. Dey say ter deyse'f dat de blacksmif breeze ter have a mighty heap er work ter do, an' dey dunner where it all come from, ner who wuz havin' it done. Bimeby, atter a long time, de neighbors got so dat dey'd drap in on him atter supper, an' set an' talk an' dodge sparks while de blacksmif run de bellers an' swung de hammer. One night de talk turned on de ol' boy an' his belongin's. De fire burnt so blue, an' de sparks flewed so fur, dat dey can't help but think 'bout de bad place, an' wid dat dey bleeze ter think 'bout ol' Impty-Umpty, de one what runs it. De blacksmif wuz monst'us busy, but he ain't so busy but what he kin hear what dey talkin' 'bout. He blowed de bellers, an' he hammered de red hot iron, but he ain't lost none er de talk, speshually when dey 'gun ter talk 'bout ol' Impty-Umpty. He lissen, he did, but he kep' on a makin' what he started fer ter make when he fust got word dat he wuz gwine ter have company, an' 'fo' dey got thoo tellin' what dey knowed 'bout ol' Impty-Umpty, he done finish it. He sot it up on de anvil an' pushed all 'roun' wid his tongs, an' dem what wuz settin' dar sees dat 'twuz a box, a big iron box wid de sides all welded toge'rr, an' de top fixed so dat he kin weld dat up tight de minute he got good an' ready. He turn de box all 'roun' an' 'roun', an' den he wipe de sweat off'n his forrerd an' grin. He 'low, "Dar's a box what is a box, an' ef anybody kin beat it, let 'im do it. Everybody been tellin' me I'm gwine ter have company soon, an' I 'speck it must be so, but dey can't come 'fo' I'm ready fer 'em." Den he ax um all how come dey hatter talk 'bout ol' Impty-Umpty, an' what do dey know 'bout 'im anyhow. Dis start de talk ag'in, an' ef de ol' boy hatter had any character, they'd 'a' rooted right den an' dar. They say that they ain't but three things that he can't turn hisself into whilst he's roaming round the world, seeking whomsoever he mought destroy. One was a hog, one was a monkey, and one was a cat. The blacksmith laughed and say that if old Impty-Umpty is gwine to be the company they are talking about, well and good, 'cause he just as ready for him as what he is for anybody else. He ain't no sooner say this than a tall black man stepped inside the door and bowed with "Howdy, masters and friends." They all looked at him up and down, and well they might, 'cause never in all they born days is they seen anybody like that. He was black, but he ain't look like no nigger. His eyes shined like a piece of glass in the moonlight. He had on a stovepipe hat and a broadcloth suit. He was slim and slick and supple, and it seemed like he was club-footed and double-jointed. Well, honey, he stood there smocking and smiling, and it looked like that the more you look at him, the slicker he got. He 'low, "Masters and friends, you had excuse me for comin' in so sudden like. I used to be a blacksmith myself, and I never catches a glimpse of a forge and a fire but what it seems like I'm obleeged to stop in a minute, if only for to warm my hands like this." He held out his hands toward the live charcoals, and the fire sprung up, just like it do when you is working the bellows for all she's worth. The flame burnt white, and then it burnt blue, and by it burnt right green, and all the time it got bigger and bigger, twel it 'gun to wrop round the black man's hands, just like snakes. Nobody ain't say a word. They ain't had no needs to. It took up all the time fer to watch what the black man gwine to do next. By, when he done warm his hands as much as he want to, he turned to the blacksmith and says he, "I hear you 'spectin' company soon?" Blacksmith, he up and ax, "Who's tellin' you?" The black man made answer, "Why, I seen old man Dickerson this mornin', and he ain't mo' dan told me howdy, 'fore he 'lowed that you 'spectin' company. And soon's I heard dat, I told him fer to set down in de big rockin' cheer and make hisse'f at home, and off I put fer to see who dis company might be that was comin' to see you." Now all dem neighbors what had come in to set up with the blacksmith knowed mighty well that old man Dickerson had done been buried the day befo', and it made 'em open their eyes when they hear the black man say that he had seed him that mornin'. And one old man what had white hair and was kinder shaky in the legs up and ax, "Whereabouts is it you see him at?" The black man say, "I see him comin' down the road, and he looked like he was kinder cold, and I axed him in fer to warm by my fire. We had a little chat, and then it was that he told me about how they was company 'spectin' at the Crossroads blacksmith shop." The old man 'low, "And did he warm hisse'f?" The black man flung back his head and laughed twel the smoke come outen his mouth. He say, "Mr. Dickerson sho did get warm, and de reason I knows is 'kase I hear him say so hisse'f." The old man shook his head and says he, that he reckon he better be polin' on to'rds home on account of the lateness of the hour. "Did you say that smoke came out of the black man's mouth, Uncle Remus?" the little boy asked. He was so much in earnest that a curious little pucker appeared between his eyebrows right over his nose. "Dat what I said, honey. Smoke. And 'twasn't no natchal smoke needer, 'kase it smelled des like it do when you strike one of dem old-timer smifflicatin' matches. It kinder gi' the neighbors a turn, and one by one they sneaked off home, twel the fust news you know, there wasn't nobody left in the shop but the black man and the blacksmith, with old Brer Rabbit peepin' through a crack. De black man he say, sezee, I done had my eye on you, and I like de way you do mighty well. You been workin' too hard and too much, but you get over dem kinder habits one of dese long come shorts. I used to be a blacksmith myself, and I'm feared you go at it in a mighty roundabout way. What does you want wid a fire? And what uses you got for dat great big bellows, which you had to work yourself to pieces for to blow? De blacksmith, he 'low, he did, dat he bleedz to have a fire, and de onlyest way he kin have one is to make de bellows blow its breath on it. De black man, he say, sezee, "Dey mought been a time when I had de same idea, but dat time is done past and gone. Lemme show you how I does de business." Wid dat, he took up a plow tongue, heft it close to his mouth, and blowed on it once or twice, and it got red hot, and then took on a white heat, de kind dey calls a weltin' heat. He put it on de anvil, and hit a lick or two wid de hammer, and it come out de purtiest shovel plow you ever is lay your eyes on. He helt it out, but de blacksmith back off, he did, and 'low, "Who de name of goodness is you, anyhow?" De black man frown when he hear de word goodness, but he make answer, "Folks got a heap of different names for me, but I ain't no ways proud, and so I 'sponds to all of 'em." De blacksmith say, sezee, "I b'lieve you ain't nobody but ole Impty-Umpty." "An' yet," says de black man, sezee, "some calls me de ole boy, an' den agin dey calls me Satan, an' I got wuss soundin' names dan dat. Dey tells me," says de blacksmith, sezee, "dat dey's 3 things you can't do," sezee. Ole Impty-Umpty 'low, "Be please fer ter hum de name um," sezee. "Well, suh," says de blacksmith, sezee, "it talk 'roun' in de neighborhood dat you can't change yo'se'f inter a hog, ner a monkey, ner 'deed inter a cat." Ole Impty-Umpty grinned and showed his sharp tushes, and den he lipped in de a'r aroun' wid a little twist, and when he hit de groun' agin, he was in de resemblance of a hog, and he looked so much like a hog dat he went gruntin' all over de shop, and gobblin' up every scrap of vittles he could find. Den he lay down and wallered like he was in a mud hole, and got up a monkey. Well, Mr. Monk was mo' livelier dan what de hog was, and he run up de wall and got on de rafters, and sot dar chatterin' and whistlin' des like a sho' 'nuff monkey. He dropped from de rafters, and when he hit de groun', de monkey was a cat, not a great big un, but a little black un dat you'd 'a' been sorry fer if you'd 'a' seed it. By dat time, de blacksmith had his iron box ready and settin' on de groun', and when de cat come close 'nough, he grabbed it by de back of de neck and soused it in de box, and slammed down de lid and fastened it. Den he laugh and laugh till it look like he ain't never gwine ter git done laughin'. But ol' Brer Rabbit, wid his eye to de crack, 'gun ter git kinder unpatient, and he fetched de groun' a whack wid his behind foot. He hit it so hard and so quick dat you'd 'a' thunk somebody was beatin' on de muffle drum. Blacksmith say, sezee, "Who dat?" Brer Rabbit 'spon', "I'm de man what you had in de box. Des so." Blacksmith say, sezee, "Go 'way, you can't fool me. Ole Impty-Umpty in here whar I put him at, an' he'll be empty-umptied 'fo' he's emptied. You hear me talkin'?" Brer Rabbit say, sezee, "Shake de box, man, shake de box." An' sho' 'nuff, when de blacksmith shake de box, he ain't hear nothin' in dar. He shake it agin, an' he don't hear nothin' in dar. Well, dis kinder thing ain't what he been 'spectin', an' he kinder scratch his head. He study an' he study what he gwine do, an' bimeby he sot right flat on de groun' an' open de box fer ter see ef it's empty or Impty-Umpty. He open it, he did, and raised the lid and tried to peep in, but he ain't seen nothin'. He raised it a leetle higher, and when he done dat, a great big black bat flewed out of the box and hit him right sprang in the face. He done his level best fer to ketch it. He struck at it with his hat and slapped at it with his hand, but the bat done gone out'n reach, and when the blacksmith look up, it was sailin' round 'mongst the rafters, fliffin' and fluffin' and grittin' its toofies. The bat flew round much as it wanter, and then it made a dart for the door and was gone, done gone. Well, time went on, and the day come when the blacksmith shop was shot up, and the blacksmith hisself was swapped from the coolin' board to the graveyard. Uncle Remus paused and looked hard at the little boy, who was listening with the composure and the complacency that were so puzzling to the old negro. He paused, cleared his throat, and then went on, "From coolin' board to graveyard ain't such a mighty fur ways, but I don't 'speck the blacksmith keered if 'twaz long or short. Dey tells me, I don't know if it's so or no, it might be des hearsay, but dey tells me dat the blacksmith had 'casion to go down dar whar Impty-Umpty live at. He mought des been passin' by, leastways he went to Impty-Umpty's house and knock at the door. He knock once, and he knock twice, and den ol' Impty-Umpty holler and ax, 'Who dat?' Blacksmith say, sezee, 'Tain't nobody but me.' Impty-Umpty 'low, he did, 'If you're de blacksmith what shut de cat up in a box, you can't come in dis place.' An' den he call one of his little impies and say, 'Go git 'im a chunk of fire and let him start a center factory of his own. He can't come in here.' Dat," remarked Uncle Remus with something like relief, "was all de fur de tale could foller de blacksmith." The little boy sat as though lost in reflection. Finally, however, he stretched himself and spoke. "Oh, Chapter 3 of Uncle Remus Returns by Joel Chandler Harris. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Phil Schinnebear. Taily-Po. When next the little boy put in an appearance at Uncle Remus's cabin, the old man was engaged in making something that appeared to be very much like a hammock. Indeed, it was so very much like a hammock that the youngster took the fact for granted, and at first asked no questions about it. He was really as inquisitive as most children, but he had been taught that this, the most natural way of improving his mind and adding to the small sum of his knowledge, was rude and countrified. "What de matter, honey?" asked Uncle Remus, observing that the little fellow was more serious than usual. "I hope the old Shanghai rooster ain't hauled off and kicked you." The child blushed. The big rooster, which had been raised as a pet, and which had a habit of pecking and pulling viciously at the buttons on people's clothes, was the only thing on the plantation that the little boy was really afraid of. He didn't know why he was afraid of the rooster, but it seemed that the rooster himself had discovered this weakness, and whenever he saw the child he would come running with his feathers ruffled and making queer noises that seemed to issue from the depths of his craw. The youngster always made it a point to get out of the rooster's way as promptly as his nimble little feet would carry him. He blushed, therefore, when Uncle Remus placed a blunt finger on his weakness, but made no reply to the comment. Instead, he declared that his mother had said that Uncle Remus had no business to fill the little boy's head full of foolish notions, especially about Satan and other topics almost equally as impolite. "What Miss Sally say to dat?" inquired the old negro, with a smile of genuine amusement. Miss Sally was the child's grandmother. "Why, grandmother said that if Satan ever got me,
it wouldn't be at your cabin."
Hee hee! And did what your mammy say?
The old negro asked. "She said it wasn't nice to talk about such things, and grandmother asked if the Bible was a nice book."
There now, what I been tellin' you.
"Honey, you better study your granny close and look at her good, 'cause some of these odd come shorts she gwine to take wings and floot away, and once she gets out of your sight, you ain't gwine to see no more like her. Lots of folks could get rich and make deyself happy just by picking up what she done forgot. If she'd 'a' been a man, she'd 'a' been a preacher, and if not dat, then she'd 'a' been one of these kind of folks what leads all the rest. No matter what crowd she got in, she'd 'a' headed the whole gang. Dey ain't no two ways about dat. Why, Miss Sally can stand on dat back porch up dar and gi' her orders, and you can hear every word she say plumb to 2 Mile Place, you sure can." The little boy disputed nothing that was said in regard to his grandmother, for he was very fond of her, but he was too small to appreciate the qualities that Uncle Remus was dimly endeavoring to indicate, and so his mind wandered from the old negro's words to his work. "What are you doing, Uncle Remus?" he asked.
Des a knittin' and a knottin', honey. Des a knottin' and a knittin'. As you see me now, des so you not a seed me 50 year ago, mo' specially if I was doin' den what I'm a doin' now."
"Where will you hang the hammock when it's finished?" inquired the youngster, his curiosity temporarily getting the better of his training.
If I kin git 2 men to hold de staffs and another one fer ter swing it, I'll hang it up in de middle er de creek and gi' de catfishes and de suckers and de perches a ride. I hope dey'll like it well enough not ter be disp'inted, but you most never kin scarcely tell. If fishes is like folks, I know purty well dat dey don't like it. There was Mr. Gristle. I most know you ain't never seen him, 'kaze he been dead ever sence I was in my teens. Well, dey took Mr. Gristle ter de court house, where dey was a whole posse er lawyers, and dey made great long speeches about him, and de judge judged him, and de jury sot on him. But spite of all dis, de man wa'n't satisfied, and he made a turrible racket when dey went to hang him. It's purty much de same way wid de fishes. Spite of de fact dat I been settin' here workin' on dis seine off an' on mighty nigh 2 months, de fishes won't no mo' dan git any good 'fo' dey'll make a turrible splutteration an' try fer ter break out."
"Well, I reckon so," the little boy exclaimed. "Yasser, you can't please everybody. If you're hangin' 'em, or makin' a seine, or tellin' a tale, somebody or sump'n will say 'tain't de right thing. I had fresh in my min' a tale dat follers right 'long atter de one about ol' Impty-Umpty, same as de behime wheel of a buggy follers de frontin'. But bless gracious, dar's yo' mammy warnin' me not ter call names in vain, an' I dunno which way to turn. Looks like dey ain't nothin' lef fer me ter do but ter keep my mouf shet an' tell my tales ter myse'f atter I go ter bed." The little boy laughed, for Uncle Remus had, as it were by chance, hit upon one of his own little tricks. In a moment he was serious again. "But grandmother says there is no harm in the stories," he declared.
"An' a mighty good thing,"
exclaimed Uncle Remus, "'kaze if there was any harm in um, all our folks would 'a' gone ter rack an' ruin, an' 'lev'm to 'lev'm generations befo' an' atter. Dey may be de wrong thing, but dey ain't done nobody no harm, not sence I kin first 'member white fum black, an' dat wuz a long time ago." "But what was the story, Uncle Remus?" asked the little boy, whose interest was now whetted to a very keen edge. "Inquirements like dat allers leads ter mo' talk," remarked the old man, with that air of wisdom that can only be assumed by those who are old in years and experience. "It's one er dem ar tales what I never is tell to yo' pappy. Nothin' ain't suit him 'ceppin' dem tales 'bout Brer Rabbit wid de creeturs pursuin' on atter him, an' him a pursuin' on atter de creeturs. But dey tells me dat in dem days, de times dat de tales tells about, Mr. Man an' his kinnery wuz enebout ez vigorous ez any er de creeturs what wuz pursuin' on atter Brer Rabbit. Dat what de ol' folks say, an' if anybody knows, it sho'ly ought ter be dem. Well, dis yer tale what I had fresh in my min' is got a song in it, an' dat's de reason I ain't been itchin' fer ter tell it, 'kaze I ain't got de knack er singin' what I useter have. When I wuz young, de ol' folks wuz allers tellin' me dat if I don't stop hollin' so loud, I'd break my puckerin' string, an' I speck dat what de matter wid me now. I done hollered so much callin' de hogs an' de sheep, an' one thing an' n'er, dat you can't speck me ter chune up an' sing des anywhar an' any time. When dis tale wuz handed down ter me, an' dat's a long ago to talk about, it seems like dat some kinder hard feelin's done sprung up 'twix' Mr. Man an' ol' Brer Rabbit, some kinder 'spute 'bout garden peas an' goobers. Mr. Man say dat Brer Rabbit nipped off de tops time dey get out'n de groun' good. Mr. Rabbit, he 'low dat dem what Mr. Man's miss ain't never come out'n de groun'. Mr. Man say dat may be so, but he tell Brer Rabbit to des look at de cabbages where dey nibbled. Brer Rabbit 'low he did dat it mought be de calves, de big green worms, an' he ax Mr. Man what needs do he have fer ter be nibblin' at spindlin' greens like dem, when he got a fine garden er his own. Mr. Man say he'd a heap rather see dat fine garden dan ter hear tell un it. An' so de 'spute run on, one word callin' fer an'er, an' dar dey had it twel bimeby, befo' one un um wuz tryin' fer ter say 2 words ter de yutter's 1. De upshot un it wuz dat Mr. Man git so mad dat he wuz red in de face, an' he call his dogs Ramboo, Bamboo, an' Lamboo, an' sicced um on Brer Rabbit. An' you know mighty well dat if dere'd 'a' been any partnership 'twix' um, de sickin' de dogs on would 'a' busted up. Now, de dogs ain't got no better sense dan ter do de best dey kin. Dey track ol' Brer Rabbit, dey trail 'im, an' dey track 'im roun' an' roun', an' up an' down, twel bimeby he say to hisse'f dat if dey don't kinder let up, he sho will drap in his tracks. Whiles he lopin' 'long wid his tongue out an' his tail off, he come ter de big holler poplar by de cool spring. He went in, he did, an' run up stairs an' sat down in a cheer, an' panted like he'd 'a' been playin' hop an' go fetch it. The old negro paused at this point, as if to see what effect the last statement would have on the child. The youngster knew as well as anyone that a hollow tree has no stairway and no place for chairs, but the matter-of-fact way in which Uncle Remus had made the announcement seemed to be sufficient evidence of its truth. Indeed, one of the queerest results of the old man's manner of telling his stories, the charm of which cannot be reproduced in cold type, was that all the animals and all the various characters that figure therein were taken out of the reality which we know, and transported bodily into that realm of reality which we feel, the reality that lies beyond the commonplace, everyday facts that constitute not the least of our worries. Fortunately for childhood, the little boy failed to discover that Uncle Remus had made any statement out of the ordinary. Observing this, the old negro's face seemed to be lighted up with enthusiasm, and he resumed the story with more cheerfulness than the child had ever seen him exhibit. "He went up stairs, he did," said Uncle Remus, insisting on renewing the statement, "an' sat down in de big rockin' cheer, an' panted twel he got kinder rested. An' all dis time, Ramboo, Bamboo, an' Lamboo was a runnin' round wid de nose to de ground, tryin' fer to pick up de trail where dey los' it at. Dey run here and dey run dar, dey run hether and dey run yon, but dey can't find it, and by dey dropped their tails and went on home. "But, Uncle Remus," the little boy interrupted, "why didn't the dogs tree Brother Rabbit? Don't you remember how you told me that the dogs on the place here could tree 'possums?" If the child had been older and wiser, he would have made sure that he had the old man in a tight corner. But he never suspected that he had Uncle Remus treed. He was simply seeking information. After a little pause, the venerable storyteller was himself again, and the little boy never knew how near he was to catching the old negro, as he never had been caught before. Uncle Remus closed his eyes when the little boy asked why the dogs didn't trail Brother Rabbit to the tree and then tree him, and gave utterance to a heart-rending groan, as though he was suffering some fearful pang, physical or mental. He thought quick and hard, and wondered what reply he should make, when the youngster himself came to the rescue. "I reckon that was before dogs had been trained to tree things." The old man opened wide his eyes and grinned from ear to ear. "Honey, you sho hit the nail on the head dat time. I was des waitin' fer to see ef you hadder be told, an' here you come an' take the words right out'n my mouth. Dey ain't a day pass dat you don't get smarter, an' you'll soon be so dat nobody can't fool you. Yasser, dat's why the dogs ain't trail Brer Rabbit to de tree an' den bay de tree. Dey ain't been learned how. Dey wa'n't no needs fer it. An' so when Brer Rabbit went in de holler tree an' run up stars, he des might ez well 'a' took wings an' flewed away fer all de dogs knowed. Well, de dogs went on back home, an' atter so long a time, atter Brer Rabbit done chaw on his cud much ez he wanter, he come down an' went on 'bout his business. An' I tell you, hon, it wuz big business too, ef you believe me. He put out, he did, an' he went lippity-clippity way off in de middle er de swamp, where ole Mammy Bammy Big Money live at. He was gwine 'long mighty gaily 'fo' he got in sight er de house, but time he see dat, he 'gun ter get droopy, twel time he get ter de gate, ef der wuz a gate. He look like he been sick a month or mo'." As soon as Uncle Remus had mentioned the name of Mammy Bammy Big Money, the child straightened himself on the bench which he was using as a chair, and gave unmistakable evidence that his interest in the story had been strengthened and renewed. He had heard his grandmother saying something about a witch named Mammy Bammy Big Money, and now he seemed to be on the point of hearing a good deal more about her. Weak ez he look, he kin holler, an' he hailed an' hailed twel somebody hello'd, an' in he went. When he got in dar, he look mo' droopy an' puny dan ef he'd had a spell er swamp fever. Mammy Bammy Big Money ax him what de matter, an' he say he in deep trouble, an' den he up an' erlate all de circumstance 'bout how Mr. Man been treatin' him. An' Mammy Bammy Big Money shuck her head an' say dat it look like ter her dat dem kinder doin's ain't much less dan scandalous. Hangin' on de wall er de place wuz de hide er some kinder varmint, I dunno what. It had de head, de footsies, an' de tail on. She took it down an' laid it on de flo', an' den got a handful er salt an' sprinkled it on de fire, a little at a time, singin', "Rise, skin, rise, open yo' big red eyes, sharpen yo' long black claws, an' work yo' big strong jaws." So said, so done, 'kaze whilst de salt wuz a snappin' an' a crackin' in de fire, de varmint hide 'gun ter move an' stretch itse'f. Den it 'gun ter roll an' waller on de flo', an' time de salt done all burn up, dar 'twuz, big ez life an' twice ez natchul.
walkin' round an' rubbin', gin old Mammy Big Money for all the world like a great big double-jinted wildcat. Brer Rabbit gi' de varmint plenty er room whenever it come his way. Bimeby, de ol' witch up an' tell Brer Rabbit dat he kin go home now an' rest in peace, 'kaze 'tain't gwineter be many long hours twel Mr. Man will have all he kin 'ten ter widout pesterin' wid anybody else. De hide had been hangin' up so long an' wuz so hard an' stiff dat de varmint had some trouble 'long at fust. Dey wuz big hard wrinkles here an' dar, but 'twasn't so mighty long 'fo' it all limbered up, an' de creetur, whatsomever de name mought be, got so dat it kin rack 'roun' des ez soople ez any yuther creetur. Brer Rabbit went off home an' went to bed, so dat when night come, he kin be up an' about wid bofe eyes open an' bofe years ready fer ter hear a bug flyin' a mile off. When 'twuz time fer Brer Rabbit to git up an' be a moseying 'roun' fer ter see what dey is fer ter be seed, Mr. Man wuz fixin' fer ter go to bed. He got in dar, he did, an' de bed feel so satchifyin' dat he fetch a grunt an' a groan, an' den, 'fo' you kin say Billy Billups wid yo' mouf open, he wuz done gone, an' eve'y time he drawed a breff, it soun' like somebody wuz tryin' fer ter grind coffee. Well, it went on dis a way twel some time durin' de night, an' den, all at once, Mr. Man open his eyes an' find hisse'f wide awake, des like folks do when dey git de idee dat dey's somebody in de room. He listen, an' he listen, an' bimeby he hear sump'n stirrin' 'bout 'mongst de pots an' de pans in de little room where he does his cookin' at. He hear it, an' den he don't hear it. Den he hear it, an' it soun' like dey's sump'n in dar huntin' fer scraps er vittles. So out de bed he slips an' slams de do' to, which it done come open. He slams it, but not befo' de creetur what's in dar done gone out, all 'ceppin' de tail. He cotch de tail when he slam de do', an' off it come right smick smack smooth. De tail wuz wigglin' so dat he can't hardly pick it up, an' when he do, he can't hardly hold it in his hand. He look at it, an' he say to hisse'f dat he ain't never is see no tail like dat. He tuck it in de room whar he sleep at, an' oncover de fire an' kindle it up, an' all dis time de tail what he had in his hand wuz givin' him about ez much ez he kin do fer ter hold it. Bimeby he put it down on de hearth an' put his foot on it, but it wuz a long tail an' a strong tail, an' it keep up a mighty wigglin' an' squirmin', an' it work itse'f out so dat it had some room, an' den it 'gun ter hit de man on de leg, an' it hit so hard dat it made him holler. Den he got mad, an' he grab up de tail an' flung it in de fire, sprang in de middle er de red hot embers. If you never see squirmin', you might 'a' seed it den if you'd 'a' been dar. You know how lizard tail'll jump an' do like dey 'live long atter dey been knocked off? Well, dis tail wuz lots mo' livelier dan what dey is. It is a big, strong tail, an' it jump out so dat it knock de ashes an' de embers out on de hearth, an' de onlyest way dat Mr. Man can keep it in de fire is to hold it down wid de tongs, whiles he tuck de shovel an' carried it wid de live coals. It fried an' shook an' fried, twel bimeby it look like dey wa'n't nothin' fer ter fry an' shake. Den Mr. Man went to bed agin, atter lookin' at de 7 stars fer ter see what time 'tis, an' he make up his min' he gwine ketch up de sleep what he done los', but time he git to dozin' good, he hear a mighty scratchin' an' gnawin' at de top er de do' where dey wuz a crack at. He 'low, Who dat?' An' den he lay still an' listen, an' atter while he hear somethin' say an' sing, 'Taily-Po, you know an' I know dat I wants my Taily-Po. Over an' under an' thoo de do', I'm a comin' fer ter git my Taily-Po.'
Uncle Remus gave to this nonsense a queer, whining intonation, and while he was singing or intoning it, he pretended to be crying. Its effect on the little boy was peculiar. He frowned in sympathy and caught his breath. "Wasn't Mr. Man scared?" he asked. "Why didn't he get his gun?"
"Shoo, honey, in dem times all de guns was pop guns," the old man replied. "De fightin' dey had wuz fist an' skull. Dey knocked it down an' drug out an' bit an' gouged. Guns! Why, if a gun had a went off whar dey could hear it, they'd 'a' run sprang ter de jumpin' off place, wharsoever that may be. Mr. Man lay dar in de bed, an' he ain't know what ter do. De scratchin' an' gnawin' went on, twel Mr. Man fairly shook an' shivered. But bimeby he thunk of his dogs, an' he made so bold as ter go ter de back do' an' call um." At this point Uncle Remus raised his voice to a very high pitch, as people do in the country places when they call their dogs. "Here, Ramboo! Here, Bamboo! Here, Lamboo! Here, dogs, here!" Well, de dogs ain't got no better sense dan ter come when dey're called, an' dey come a runnin'. Mr. Man sic 'em 'roun' ter de front er de house, an' it seem like when dey got dar, dey took right atter sump'n, an' off dey went a flyin' twel dey get plumb out'n hearin'. 'Fo' dey kin git back home ag'in, Mr. Man wuz des 'bout ter drap off ter sleep when he hear de same scratchin' fuss, an' dis time it wuz at de back do' whar dey wuz a big a crack. He ax who de name er goodness is dat, an' what does dey want at dis time er night, when all honest folks oughter be in bed, an' no sooner is he ax dis den dar come de answer. "Yo' name I know is Willie Joe, an' 'fo' I'm gwine ter rally go, I bleeze ter have my Taily-Po. Gimme dat now, gilly go, Taily-Po, my Taily-Po." Mr. Man went out to de front an' called de dogs, but dey ain't dar, an' so dey can't 'spon'. Dar wuz Mr. Man, an' som'ers not fur off wuz de scratchin' an' gnawin' creature cryin' out, "I know you know, an' I know dat all I wants is my Taily-Po." Mr. Man shut an' barred de do', an' went back ter bed an' pulled de cover over his head, 'kaze he dunno what mo' ter do. He can't ketch de creature in de dark widout de help er de dogs, an' de dogs done gone way off yonder. He got his head kivered, but spite er dis, he bleeze ter listen at de scratchin' an' gnawin' an' growlin', an' he shake an' shiver wuss'n he y'ever done. Somehow er n'er, by toof er toenail, de creature got in de house, an' no sooner is he get in dan he 'gun ter ramble 'roun' huntin' fer his tail. He rambled, he did, an' when anything got in his way, he'd hunch it over an' root it out'n de way. Pans fell on de flo', slam bangerang. Pots got turned over, an' when dey roll 'cross de flo', dey soun' like a young thunderstorm. De man, he lay dar an' shook an' shivered. Bimeby de varmint come ter de fireplace in de room where de man sleepin' at. In dem days der wa'n't no matches, not even deze here smiflicatin' kind, an' folks hatter kiver up de fire ef dey 'spectin' ter find any dar de nex' mornin'. 'Twuz dat walkin' a mile or mo' fer ter borry a chunk. Well, Mr. Man had kivered his fire atter he put de creetur's tail in de embers. He had ashes on top er de embers, an' de embers on top er de chunks an' coals. De creetur come up ter de hearth, he did, an' nose 'roun', an' it seem like he smell sump'n, 'kaze he growled, an' den he whined, and with dat he start to paw in de fire. De way he scratch and claw it up was a sin. The red hot embers flewed out on the floor, the live coals followed 'em, and den out come the chunks, and whamsoever they hit, a blaze sprung up. Some flewed on the bed, and some flewed clean over it. When the creetur had clawed all the fire out, there was his tail, all safe and sound, and he grabbed it up in his mouth and went out of the house like there was something atter him. By that time the house was in a blaze, and not only the house, but the bed where Mr. Man was layin' at. 'Twas den gettin' close to daybreak, and when the other folks 'gun to wake up and stir round, they say, "Hey, oh, some neighbor is burnin' off his new ground." Old Brer Rabbit, settin' in his rockin' cheer, kinder wunk one eye and say, I 'clar' to gracious if I don't smell smoke." Ole Mammy Bammy Big Money, way off in the swamp, raise her head and say, "I smells meat a fryin'." The little boy waited a few minutes to see. Chapter 4 of Uncle Remus Returns. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Phil Chenevert. Uncle Remus Returns by Joel Chandler Harris, Brother Rabbit, Brother Fox, and Two Fat Pullets. The little boy to whom Uncle Remus told his later stories was not as persistent nor as insistent as was his father before him when he was a youngster. This fact was not as pleasing to the old man as might be expected. He liked to be asked for a story so that he might have an opportunity of indulging in a friendly dispute, a wrangle of words, and then suddenly end it all by telling the tale that happened to be in his mind at the moment. In short, he delighted to whet the expectations of the youngster and arouse his enthusiasm. This particular little boy never appeared to be very anxious for a story unless the old man led up to it by means of conversation and comment, or indicated it by some evasive allusion, and when the story was once under way, the child rarely interrupted to ask a question, so that Uncle Remus was frequently in great doubt as to whether the tale had been an enjoyable one. What the old man liked best of all things was to hear children laugh, and to feel that he had in some measure added to the sum of their enjoyment. Most of his quarrels were mock quarrels, and his severest frowns always had pretense for a basis. Over and above the results of his training, which the old man, agreeing with the grandmother, thought had been a severity out of all proportion to the character of the child, the little boy was as much interested in Uncle Remus himself as he was in the stories he told, for the old man had already developed into a tradition. His name was as much a part of the family as that of any member thereof, and if the child had any hero, such as dwelt in the realm of mystery and romance, it was Uncle Remus himself, with his gray head and his air of belonging to some other place and some other time. And all this in spite of the fact that no other person could take his place, or fit or fill the position which he occupied. One day, when the little boy came to see the old man, he seemed to be somewhat disturbed about something. "Uncle Remus, Uncle Remus!" he cried, and then, remembering some admonition that had to do with conduct, he paused. "Why, honey, what's the matter? Who been pesterin' you? Just tell me de name and how big dey is, and I'll see if I can't put a flea in der ear, or maybe two." "There isn't anything the matter, much. After I was ready to go to bed last night, I didn't feel very sleepy, and grandmother told me a story. She said it was one you used to tell papa,
But that wasn't all. She said that all the animals were once meat-eaters. I don't see how that could be.
Well, if that's all yo' trouble, honey, it sho' ain't much. You can put yo' penance in what Miss Sally say. If she tells you de creeturs was meat-eaters, dey sho' was. And if she tell you dat they ain't never is eat no meat, you can put it down des dat way.
Grandmother was telling how Brother Rabbit got some meat from Mr. Man, said the little boy by way of explanation.
Yes, sir, exclaimed Uncle Remus enthusiastically. It seems just like yesterday I was telling that tale to yo' pappy. He was sitting right on dat bench dar, foolin' with my shoe knife and mixin' the big pegs with the little uns, and I had to holler at him more'n once. He was some bigger than what you is, and he had more life in him than a quart of camphene. It seems just like 'twas yesterday, but he done growed up, and now here you is, not much bigger than a bunch of ripe chinaberries what the robins been tamperin' with. As Miss Sally say, time has got a heap of fluges mixed up with it. You think it's a-standin' still, but all dat time it's just a-callahootin' and a-humpin' and a-totin' the mail. You can't hear the engine, but dey's one dar, and a mighty big un at dat, and it's gwine yonder."
"Where is it going?" asked the little boy.
"It's gwine where it's gwine, that's where it's gwine," replied Uncle Remus in a tone and an air that seemed to render further inquiry not only unnecessary but altogether absurd. "It ain't doin' nothin' but just a-gwine, and when it gets where it's gwine, it keeps on a-gwine. And if you want to go with it, go you can, if you'll just let me stay right where I is."
The little boy said nothing more on that subject, which was quite beyond his comprehension. He sat quite still while Uncle Remus sharpened his pocket-knife, which was a large horn-handled affair, and bore the marks of long usage. "Grandmother said you were not the only person that said the animals ate meat, or something else besides vegetables. She told how Plutarch said something about the sheep eating fish."
"Did she say dat?" inquired Uncle Remus.
When the little boy nodded his head in the affirmative, the old negro closed his eyes and seemed to be reflecting. Presently he returned to the subject.
"Plutarch, is Miss Sally say what plantation he live on?"
The child shook his head.
"Well," responded Uncle Remus with a sigh of relief, "he ain't never is live in dese parts, 'cause if he had, I'd 'a' knowed him. I 'spect Miss Sally heerd talk on him de time she went to Ferginny, 'cause if dey'd 'a' been any Plutarch 'mongst de niggers in dese diggin's, I'd 'a' knowed him. Let him be where he will or where he kin, de creeturs all used to eat meat 'stid of grass and hay, and it had to be fresh. Dey was all so greedy dat bimeby fresh meat gun to get scarce, and dey had to study how and whar to gwine get it, and how dey gwine to keep it from the balance of 'em atter dey got it. It got so, atter while, dat dey had to all git a share of what dey got to the king lion, and it seemed like he had a yappetite bigger dan a thrashing machine. Den de time come when King Lion stuck a briar in his foot, and de yuther creeturs had to set up all night and get up 'fo' day fer to keep 'em wid enough fresh meat fer to keep 'em from starvin' to death. He lay dar and groan twel some un 'em come in wid a hunk of fresh meat, and den he'd growl and ask 'em if dat was all dey could fetch. Long about de time his foot got so bad dat he had to send fer de doctor, and whom should de doctor be but ol' Brer Rabbit hisse'f. He ain't had no powders and he ain't had no pills, but he know a mighty heap about yarbs and such like green truck. He know how to make bergamot grease fer to put on his har when he go to see Miss Meadows and de gals. He know dat peach tree poultice is good for biles. He know dat sheep sorrel salve is good for old sores, and he know dat white turkentine and mutton suet will heal up fresh hurts and cuts. De creeturs heard him talkin' about all dese salves and truck, and des for fun dey'd call him Doc when dey ain't frettin' about de way he been doin' 'em. Well, ole King Lion sent fer de doctor, and Brer Rabbit looked in on him fer to see what mought be done fer him. Now, to look at de paw what de briar was stuck in, Brer Rabbit had to go monst'us close to King Lion's mouth, which was spang full of blood-red tongue and shiny tushes, and he ain't like dat kind of business nohow. Every time Brer Rabbit 'ud feel de hot breath of King Lion blowin' on him, he'd flinch and swing up, and when old King Lion gaped, Brer Rabbit like to fainted dead away. But he fumble round and stay dar de best he can, and fix up de paw wid some kind of soothin' salve fer to draw de information out, and den he say so long. When he come out of King Lion's house, he took notice dat of all de creeturs waitin' de turn fer to go in, Brer Fox warn't dar. He up an' ax, he did, "Whar Brer Fox?" Nobody make answer. Den Brer Rabbit holler out loud as what he kin, "Is anybody seed Brer Fox?" Dey shook der heads, one and all. Nobody ain't seed him. Den Brer Rabbit, he poled off down de big road. Soon as he got out'n sight of de crowd, he sot down by de side of de road, and had a laughin' spell dat lasted for de longest. Mo' dan once he made a motion like he gwine to get up from dar and go on where he gwine, but 'fore he got on his feet good, de giggles get de better of him, and he had to set down again. Atter so long a time, he got so he kin walk, and den he put out down de big road. He come to whar de roads cross, when who should he meet but ole Brer Fox? And not only Brer Fox, but two fat pullets and de old puddle duck what been waddlin' round in dem neighborhoods for mo' years than I can tell you. Brer Rabbit, he howdied, and Brer Fox, he helloed, and den Brer Rabbit, he up and ask him where he been all dis long time, mo' specially since he wa'n't up dar where King Lion live at. "Dey was a mighty inquirement for you, Brer Fox," says old Brer Rabbit, says he, "and I told 'em all dat you was kinder feeble here lately, and dat you was tryin' fer to pick up some flesh. And sho' 'nuff you was." Wid dat, Brer Rabbit flick a thistle seed off'n his nose wid his behime foot. Brer Fox, he look kinder sheepish when he hear dat, and he ax Brer Rabbit if King Lion made any inquirements 'bout him. Brer Rabbit 'low, "He call out yo' name mo' dan once, and he put some language round it dat'd burn a hole in my tongue if I was to say it. I hope he'll be feelin' better when next you see him." Brer Fox, he say, says he, "For goodness sake, Brer Rabbit, did he up and cuss?" Brer Rabbit 'low he did. "I ain't no toter of tales, Brer Fox, but if you kin get out'n yo' mind anything wuss dan cussin', den dat is what King Lion say." Brer Fox ax what he gwine to do 'bout it, and Brer Rabbit say he be bless if he know. Dey jawed a while, and 'bout de time dat Brer Fox was gwine to say his so long, Brer Rabbit, atter feelin' in his pockets and lookin' skeered like he done lost somethin', pull out a piece of paper and hold it up. He 'low, "Atter old King Lion had his spell of warm talk, he hand me dis and say dat I was to show it when I seed you. Now, to make sho' dat you see it, des tear off one corner, and I'll gi' it to the King Lion when next you see him. 'Tain't nothin' tall but a supple peeny." Brer Fox, he look at it kinder sideways. He 'low, "Is dey any writin' on it? 'Cause if dey is, 'twa'n't gwine to do me no good fer to look at it. I kin read readin', but I can't read writin'." Brer Rabbit say dat's de case wid him, 'ceppin' dat he kin read writin', but he can't read readin'. Brer Fox, he ax, he did, what do de writin' say?' Brer Rabbit, he kinder wrinkle up his forehead and hold out de paper like you see de ole folks do. He make like he readin', and he 'low, 'All and simely whichever and whoever and wheresomever, specially de howcome and what's his name, de foe said, Flander and Flender, let him come head foremost into the courthouse, where the high sheriff and the low can lay him down and flatten him out, all whom's she mought concern.' Nuff said."
The little boy stared at Uncle Remus with wide eyes, as though the old man had lost his senses. "What did all that mean?" he asked.
"It mean dat King Lion want Brer Fox fer to come up dar where he can get both paws on him. Dat what it mean."
When he began to answer the little boy's query, Uncle Remus had pretended to be somewhat indignant, as it suddenly dawned on him that Brother Rabbit was only pretending that he had a paper from King Lion, and his frown spread itself out into a smile that was pleasing to see.
"'Twould 'a' meant dat, honey, if dere'd 'a' been any writin' on de paper, but Brer Rabbit was des playin' one of his pranks. He had one eye on dem fat pullets, and dat on Whittle Waddle Puddle Duck, dat's what he had. And time he see Brer Fox totin' 'em, he gwine to worry how he gwine to get one or both or all of 'em. Brer Rabbit ain't let on 'bout de pullets and ole Whittle Waddle, but he had 'em in his eye and likewise in his mind. So he say, 'Now you done hear what de papers say, Brer Fox, you better follow dey sesso. Here de piece what's tored off. Take dat and put it in yo' pocket, and when old King Lion asks you is you seed me, des show it, and don't be all day about it, nudder.' Brer Fox ax is he got time fer to take his meat home, and Brer Rabbit 'low dat he is. Wid dat, he put out down de road, and Brer Rabbit sot right flat on de ground and laughed. Twel, if you'd 'a' seen him, you'd 'a' said he done find a new gigglin' place. He follered 'long atter Brer Fox, but took keer fer to keep out'n sight. He seed Brer Fox run in his house fer to put ole Whittle Waddle and de pullets away. Den he run out again, follered by his ole woman, and he hear her holler out, 'You better come on back here and help me wid dese chillun of yourn, 'cause it's a mighty fine situation when a woman, and her not well at dat, has to do every blessed thing there is to be done. Split up de wood to make de fire, pick up de chips fer to kindle it wid, do all de cookin', all de pullin' and haulin', and take keer of all your good-for-nothin' chillun. You better come back here, I tell you.' But by dat time, Brer Fox was done gone. Brer Rabbit stayed where he was a right smart while, long enough fer Brer Fox to get mos' where he gwine, and den he saunter out in de big road and make his way to Brer Fox house. He went up, he did, monstrous polite. It look like butter won't melt in his mouth. He opened de gate slow, and he make sure it was shut behind him. He went to de door and rap on it, and stand dar wid his hat in his hand, and look mighty humble come tumble. Ole Miss Fox, she opened de door, she did, and Brer Rabbit passed de time of day wid her, and den say he got a message fer her some'ers in his pocket, if he can ever find it. Atter so long a time, he find de paper what Brer Rabbit say come from ole King Lion. He hand her dis, and Miss Fox say she ain't a good hand at readin', not since de chillun broke her first seein' specks, and she dunno what de name o' goodness she gwine do, 'specially when her ole man ain't skeercly got time fer to stay at home, and when he does run in, it looks like de flo' burn blisters in his feet, and she say if she'd a knowed at fust what she know at last, she'd take 2 long thinks and a mighty big thunk 'fo' she'd marry anybody in de roun' world. Brer Rabbit, he 'low, "Yassum," an' den he up an' tell her dat he met Brer Fox, which King Lion done sont him a soup peeny. Brer Fox ax him how he gittin' on, an' Brer Rabbit say he'd be gittin' on purty well ef he had anything ter eat at his house. All dis is de tale dat Brer Rabbit was po'in' in ol' Miss Fox's year. Den Brer Fox wipe his eye an' say 'tain't gwine do fer Brer Rabbit ter go widout eatin'. Ol' Miss Fox break inter de tale wid, "I wish he'd wipe his eye 'bout some er my troubles. His eye's dry 'nuff when he's roun' here." Brer Rabbit 'low, "Yassum," an' den he say dat Brer Fox 'low as how no longer'n dat ve'y mornin' he fotch home 2 fat pullets an' ol' Whittle Waddle Puddle Duck, an' he say Brer Rabbit kin have his chosenments of de pullets er de puddle duck. Mo' den dat, Brer Rabbit say Brer Fox sot right dar in de road an' writ Miss Fox a note so dat she'll know his will an' desirements. Ol' Miss Fox look at Brer Rabbit mighty hard. She done tell 'im 'bout her fust seein' specks, an' she say dat ef de letter ain't read twel she reads it, she mighty sorry fer de letter. She took it an' turn it upside down an' roun' an' roun', an' den hand it back ter Brer Rabbit wid, "What do she say?" Brer Rabbit, he cleared his throat an' make out he readin'. He say, "To all whomst it mought contrive in consarn, both now and presently, be so pleased as to let Brer Rabbit have de pullets er de puddle duck. I'm well at dis writin', and a hopin' you are enjoyin' de same shower er blessin's." "Whatsomever it mought 'a' been, 'tain't no love letter," says ol' Miss Fox, says she, an' den she fotch out de 2 fat pullets, an' Brer Rabbit, he moseyed off home, singin' de song dat tells 'bout how Mr. Fox done lef de towny-o. Uncle Remus paused, leaned his head back, and groaned. "Is that all?" asked the little boy. "It mought be, an' den ag'in it moughtn't," the old man responded. "It 'pen's on who's a tellin' de tale. Some folks would cut it right short off an' let it go at dat, but not me. When I starts fer ter tell a tale, I pursues it right ter de end, des like de creeturs was pursuin' one another. Des like de big men is pursuin' de little men, wid de little men gittin' ter kiver an' a hittin' back as dey run. One thing Brer Rabbit know mighty nigh ez well as he know dat he's hungry. He know 'twon't never do in de roun' world fer Brer Fox fer ter go back home an' find out how de pullets went. So when he get out'n sight of Brer Fox's house, he whipped up an' went a runnin' home des as hard as he kin. An' he tell his ol' lady fer ter take de pullets an' fix um fine wid de kinder doin's dey has wid chickens, 'kaze he mought have comp'ny. He say he got ter go back an' see how ol' King Lion's paw gittin' on, an' he put out fer ter be dar 'fore Brer Fox come 'way. He lit out, he did, an' fairly burt up de big road wid his footsies, boogity boogity. An' when he get dar, sho' 'nuff, Brer Fox was dar, lookin' like de really truly goodness was de drippin' from his mouf an' oozin' from his hide. You may 'a' seed folks dat look umble come tumble, but you ain't never seed nobody dat got umble come tumbleness down as fine as what Mr. Fox had it. An' a mighty good reason, 'kaze he was skeered dat King Lion was gwine ter haul him over de coals fer not fetchin' de meat dat he ought to fotch him. When Brer Fox got to whar King Lion do de kingin', dey was a whole passel er creeturs ahead of him, an' mighty nigh all un um had some meat, an' dem what ain't had it come wid some tale fer ter skoosin' derse'f. Dey went in one by one an' had de confab an' den come out ag'in, some lookin' glad an' some lookin' mad, an' all dat time dar sot Brer Fox waitin' his turn. He was might'ly hope up when he see Brer Rabbit, 'cause he know dat Brer Rabbit, bein' de doctor, can get in dar 'fo' anybody. He hail Brer Rabbit and say he mighty glad fer to see him once mo' live and well, and Brer Rabbit 'spon' dat he monstrous glad fer to see Brer Fox. He 'low, "I'm mo' dan glad fer to see you ain't been in dar where de king's doin' his kingin' at," says ol' Brer Rabbit, sezee. "I was feared you'd take a notion and go in dar 'fo' I kin get back, and dat 'ud 'a' been mighty bad fer you, it sho would." Den Brer Rabbit look like he studyin', and by he up and say, sezee, "Brer Fox, you stay right whar you is, and don't try to go in dar where de king at, twel I get you de word. I dunno what he mought do to you." Brer Fox say he mighty glad Brer Rabbit got dar in time fer to save his hide. Now, Brer Rabbit, bein' de doctor, he had de right fer to go in dar where de king at, wifout any standin' 'roun' and waitin', and he elbowed his way thoo de waitin' creeturs, spite er der spittin' and growlin', and went right on in where King Lion at. His paw was all wropped up, and he was des droppin' off to sleep, and whiles Brer Rabbit was lookin' at him, he turned loose, he did, and 'gun ter snow like he done swallered a hoss, mane and hoof. Seein' dat, Brer Rabbit made a bow and go right out where Brer Fox and de yuther creeturs was waitin' at. Soon as Brer Fox see dis, he ax Brer Rabbit what de news. Brer Rabbit tuck him off one side and tell him he better go on home, 'cause King Lion was tubly put out by de way Brer Fox been gwine on. "I begged off fer you, Brer Fox," says ol' Brer Rabbit, sezee, "and he say dat he'll scoosen you dis time, but de nex' time—" Brer Rabbit made a notion like he taken off his head. "You better go on home, Brer Fox," sezee, "for yo' ol' woman gives 'way dem fine fat pullets what I seed you wid dis mornin'." Brer Fox laugh, he say he like fer to see somebody get dem pullets 'way from his ol' woman. "If you kin get 'em, Brer Rabbit," sezee, "you're mo' dan welcome." "Dat's so," Brer Rabbit 'low. "Thanky, Brer Fox, thanky." And he went lippity-clippity down de road, laughin' so loud dat Brer Fox stop and look at him, wid, "I'd like ter know what's de joke."
Chapter 5 of Uncle Remus Returns by Joel Chandler Harris. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Phil Chenevert. How Brother Rabbit Brought Family Trouble on Brother Fox. The little boy sat in a thoughtful attitude after Uncle Remus had told him how Brother Rabbit had fraudulently secured Brother Fox's pullets. He had been taught never to ignore the difference between right and wrong, justice and injustice, and in his mind the line between the two was sharply and deeply drawn. He sat reflecting while Uncle Remus busied himself about his workbench, on one end of which was his favorite seat. He arranged and rearranged his tools, and then folded his hands in his lap with an air of satisfaction. He evidently expected the youngster to make some comment or observation, and when he waited a little while he made a remark calculated to draw the child out. "I'm feared you ain't feelin' well, honey. Sump'n in dat tail must 'a' made you feel bad." The little boy looked at him, but made no response. "Whereabouts in de tail was you tooken sick at?" Uncle Remus inquired, with a great display of solicitude. "Why, I'm not sick, Uncle Remus," replied the lad. "Well, I'm monsters glad to hear it," the old man responded, "'cause you sho had me scared. A little mo' and I'd 'a' tole you fer to run and let yo' granny look at yo' tongue and feel of yo' pulse." The child laughed at this, and then became serious again. "Dey's sump'n de matter wid you," Uncle Remus insisted.
'cause ever since I told you dat tale, you been looking like you got mo' on your mind dan you can tote."
"I was just thinking," said the child, somewhat shyly. He was always embarrassed when commenting on Uncle Remus's stories. "I was just thinking that when Brother Rabbit got the chickens from Brother Fox, he was really stealing them."
"Dey ain't no two ways 'bout dat,"
said Uncle Remus complacently.
"But what wuz Brer Fox doin' when he got um? Pullets and puddle ducks don't grow on trees, and it's been a mighty long time sence dey been runnin' wild. No, honey, dey's a heap of ideas dat you got to shake off if you gwine to put de creeturs 'longside of folks. You'll hatter shake um en shuck um. Creeturs could talk like folks in dat day and time, and dey kin do a heap of things what folks do, but you kin see de diffunce fer yo'se'f. Folks got der laws, and creeturs got der'n, and it bleeze to be dat-a-way. Brer Rabbit took de pullets when by good rights he oughter lef 'em whar he find 'em. You larn fer yo'se'f dat dey's a heap of folks lots wuss dan Brer Rabbit when it comes to takin' what ain't darn. And when you larn it, you'll look back on dese times and feel so sorry dat you ain't got 'em wid you dat you'll hatter wipe yo' eyes and blow yo' nose. And I'm a hopin' mighty strong dat you won't be tryin' fer ter show off in no gal company when you does it, 'kaze dat'll make Miss Sally turn in her grave." These remarks were way beyond the little boy, but he accepted them as an explanation, though it was not altogether satisfactory. He seemed to imagine that if the animals could talk and reason in the way that Uncle Remus represented them, they should have some idea of the difference between right and wrong. The old negro had no difficulty whatever in perceiving the nature of the child's trouble, and he dealt with it as seriously and as solemnly as he knew how. "It seems like,"
he said, glancing at the little boy,
"dat folks has got one way er lookin' at things, and it's all bleeze to be des de way dey think it oughter be. Ef dey had diffunt eyes, an' ef dese eyes wuz on a diffunt level, dey wouldn't see de way dey does now. What dey see would be a little mo' slunchways, an' den everybody would get diffunt ideas. Well, de diffunt eyes an' de diffunt ideas dat folks moughter had, dat's des exactly what de creeturs got. What dey see slunchways, 'stidder uppendicler. Folks got der ways, an' de creeturs is got der'n, an' dese yer ways wuz proned in um from de fust. Creetur law ain't folks' law, nohow you kin fix it," Uncle Remus went on with the unction of a country preacher. "Dar wuz ol' Brer Fox, wid his pullets an' his puddle duck. You done got de idee dat Brer Rabbit done wrong when he work his head an' han's fer ter get holt un um. But lemme ask you dis: where did Brer Fox get um? He ain't got um at home, 'kaze he wuz totin' um dar when we fust run across him. He ain't get um in de woods, 'kaze pullets an' puddle ducks ain't grow on trees, an' ef dey is, Brer Fox can't climb no higher dan he kin jump. Now you kin put it down an' carry 'fore dat wheresomever Brer Fox lay han's on um, he ain't bite um, an' needer wuz dey gun to him. Dat much you don't hatter guess at, you des knows it by yo' nose an' yo' two big toes. Let 'lone dat, de pullets an' de puddle duck mought not 'a' belonged to de one what Brer Fox took um from, an' I boun' you dat 'twould take a mighty long time fer ter hunt up an' sorch out de nicknames an' de pedigrees er all dem what had um 'fo' Brer Rabbit drapped um off in his rasher bag." Uncle Remus paused to take note of the direction of the wind and the appearance of the sky. Then he sighed and closed his eyes. After a while the spirit seemed to move him, and he straightened himself on the workbench and exchanged the somewhat uncomfortable seat for a chair. "I'm mighty glad you spokened up an' say what you did, honey," he remarked. 'cause a little mo', and I'd 'a' up and a whirled in and 'a' told you de t'other part er dat tale 'bout Brer Rabbit and de pullets and de puddle duck. I sho' would. An' den you'd 'a' felt so mighty sorry 'bout de way de creeturs look at things dat you'd 'a' went behind de smoke house an' 'a' boo-hooed des like yo' gizzard was gwine ter break in two." The little boy gave the old negro a quick glance of reproach. "Why, Uncle Remus," he exclaimed, "I thought you always finished a story when you begun it. You said so yourself." In spite of a desire to treat the child seriously, Uncle Remus grinned broadly. "De way I look at it, honey, you hatter harness two hosses one at a time, less'n you got a man fer ter help you. An' when you're tellin' a two-hoss tale, you hatter tell um one at a time. If I wuz ter try fer ter tell um bofe at once, you'd 'a' run ter de house an' tell yo' granny dat ole man Remus had done gone an' got rid er his 7 senses, an' wuz tryin' fer ter gi' you a good strong dose er Chinee, an' when you done dat, Miss Sally sho' would preach my funeral march. I wa'n't born yistiddy, an' I take notice dat yo' daddy ain't got de double barrel gun, an' dat Miss Sally don't have but one hoss fer ter haul her to church Sundays. Dat ar double buggy dat yo' daddy use ter drive up dar in Atlanty would look mighty funny if it hadn't mo' dan one hoss hitched to it. Lawsy, yes. Everything is mo' lamer now dan what it used to be, an' I bet you right now dat if de truth was known, we are standin' on our heads." The little boy was obliged to laugh at this whimsical explanation, and this gave Uncle Remus as much pleasure as the stories gave the child. "If you wet yo' thumb an' turn back in yo' min', 'twon't be hard fer you ter recommember dat Brer Fox tole Brer Rabbit dat if he kin git dem two fine fat pullets from his ole 'oman, he's mo' dan welcome fer ter git um. But when Brer Fox say dat, de pullets wuz hangin' up at Brer Rabbit house. He done got um wid dat piece er paper what he tuck'n show ole Miss Fox. Dat what made him laugh so loud an' so long. Well, sir, atter Brer Rabbit git done laughin', he moseyed off home whar his wife an' chillun live at, an' Brer Fox, he went on to'rds his house whar his ole 'oman live at. If he'd 'a' had his eyes shet, he'd 'a' knowed when he got dar, 'kaze ole Miss Fox wuz standin' in de do' waitin' fer him. She 'gun ter jaw at 'im long 'fo' he got in listenin' distance, an' you mought 'a' heerd her a mile er mo'. When he got whar he knowed what she wuz sayin', he ain't say nothin'. He des amble 'long twel he come ter de do'. By dat time ole Miss Fox wuz so mad dat she can't say nothin' an' do justice ter herse'f. So she des stan' dar an' make motions wid de broom what she had in her han'. Brer Fox, he wipe de purse sweat off'n his face an' eyes, an' say, "It seems like ter me dat I hear you talkin' ter some un des now. What wuz you sayin', sugar honey?" Soon as she kin ketch her breff, she 'low, "I'll sugar you, I'll honey you. What make you fetch vittles home ef you gwineter sen' um off agin? What you want ter put yo'se'f ter de trouble er totin' it ter dis house when you know you gwineter give it away des as soon as you turn yo' back on de place? An' what business you got sendin' ole Miss Rabbit de two fine, fat pullets what you brung home, when dey made me dribble at de mouf de fust time I seen um? An' I ain't mo' dan seen um 'fo' here comes ole Brer Rabbit a bowin' an' a scrapin' an' a simperin' an' a sniggerin', an' he 'low dat you done sont him fer de pullets. Ef it had 'a des been his own 'lone sesso, he'd 'a' never got dem pullets in de roun' worl'. I'd 'a' gouged out his goozle fust. But here he come wid a letter what you writ, dough you know good an' well dat when it comes ter writin' I don't know beef from bull's foot." Brer Fox shook his head. He say he ain't never writ no letter. 'cause he dunno how, and it seemed mighty funny to him that his sugar honey and dumplin' pie don't know dat much. Ol' Miss Fox, she 'low, she did, dat dumplin' pie ain't chicken pie, and den she rail at Brer Fox. How come you givin' pullets to ol' Brer Rabbit and his family when your own chillun, twixt your laziness and de hard times, is gwine roun' here so gaunt dat dey can't make a shadder in de moonshine? You know mighty well, none better, dat we ain't never is neighbored wid dat kinder trash. An' I dunno what done come over you dat you are takin' vittles out'n your own chillun's mouth an' feedin' dat rabbit brood. Brer Fox vow an' declare he ain't done no such of a thing, an' his old woman vow an' declare dat he is, an' she shake de broom so close under his nose dat he had a sneeze. Den he 'low, "Does you mean fer ter stan' dar, flat-footed an' right 'fo' my face an' eyes, an' where yo' own chillun kin hear you, dat you tuck an' give Brer Rabbit dem ar fine fat pullets what I brung home? Does you mean fer ter tell me dat?" She say, "Ef I done it 'kase you writ me a pistle an' tell me fer ter do it." Brer Fox 'low, "Is you got de imperdence ter tell me dat des 'kase Brer Rabbit han' you a piece er paper wid sump'n er other marked on it, you ain't got nothin' better ter do dan ter up an' gi' him de fine fat pullets what I brung fer ter make some chicken pie?" Dis make ol' Miss Fox so mad dat she can't see straight, an' when she git so she kin talk plain, she vow she gwine ter hurt Brer Rabbit if it took a lifetime fer ter do it. An' dar wuz Brer Fox des ez mad, if not madder. Dey both sot down an' grit der tushes an' mumble an' growl like dey talkin' ter deyse'f. Brer Rabbit wasn't so mighty fur off, an' he laugh an' laugh twel he can't laugh no mo'. But whiles he's laughin', he laugh too loud, an' Brer Fox hear him. He say to his ol' woman, "I'm gwine ter git some rabbit meat fer ter make up fer de chickens what you done give 'way. You be sweepin' here in front er de do', an' I'll slip roun' de back way an' come up on him when he ain't thinkin' 'bout it. An' whilst you sweepin', make out you talkin' ter me like I'm in de house." So said, so done. Miss Fox, she sweep an' sweep, an' while she sweepin', she make out she talkin' ter Brer Fox whiles he in de house. She say, "You better come out dar an' go about yo' business ef you got any. Here I'm constant a gwine from mornin' till night, an' you dar is a loungin' roun' waitin' fer Brer Rabbit fer ter play tricks on you. You better come on out dar an' find sump'n er ter eat fer yo' family." Dat's de way she talk while she was pretendin' to sweep, an' des 'bout dat time, up come ol' Brer Rabbit wid a mighty perlite bow. He tuck off his hat, he did. "Good evenin' dis evenin', Miss Fox. I hope I see you well, ma'am." Miss Fox 'low dat she ain't as peart as she look ter be, an' mo' dan dat, her ol' man layin' in de house right now wid a mighty bad case er de influenzaways. Brer Rabbit say he mighty sorry, but it's what we all got ter look out fer, 'kase 'zease an' trouble an' one thing or another is all de time makin' de rounds er de places whar folks live at. Den ol' Brer Rabbit kinder hol' his head on one side an' sorter smile. He up an' ax, he did, "Miss Fox, how you like dat cut er caliker what King Lion sont you fer ter make a frock out'n? Reason I ax, I'm a gwine ter see 'im dis evenin', an' I mos' know dat he'll ax me ef you like de pattern." Miss Fox lean her broom agin de house, an' put her hands on her hips, an' make Brer Rabbit say over what he done tol' her. "Well, well, well," says ol' Miss Fox, says she, "de king sont me a caliker frock, an' I ain't never laid eyes on it? Ef dat don't beat my time! Brer Rabbit, he put his hand over his mouth and cough sorter soft, he 'low, he did. "You hatter excuse me, ma'am," says he. "I'm afeard I done gone and said sump'n dat I oughtn't to say. When I knows what I'm a doin', I never likes fer ter come 'twix' man and wife ef I kin help myse'f. No, ma'am, not me." Yit Brer Fox is right dar in de house, an' you kin ax 'im ef you don't b'lieve me. For one long minute Miss Fox was so mad that she hatter wait twel she cotch her breath 'fo' she kin say a word. Lots of wimmen would 'a' stood up dar an' squealed, but Miss Fox, she held her breath. Quick as she kin, she holler out, "No, he ain't in de house. He's out yon tryin' fer ter slip up on you 'bout dem pullets." "I'm glad you got dat idee," says Brer Rabbit, says he, "'cause it's a liable fer ter keep down de trouble. Ef you wuz a man, Miss Fox," says he, "you mought git de idee dat he seed me comin' an' wuz hidin' out 'cause he feared I'd ax you 'bout de frock what de king sont you. It sho wuz a mighty purty piece er caliker, an' ef I'd 'a' knowed den what I know now, I'd 'a' got it from Brer Fox an' give it to my ol' 'oman, I sho would." Wid dat, Brer Rabbit make his bow an' light out from dar, an' he wa'n't none too soon, nudder, 'kaze he ain't mo' dan got in de bushes whar he kin hide himse'f, 'fo' here come ol' Brer Fox. He look all 'roun', but he ain't see nobody but his ol' 'oman, 'kaze Brer Rabbit done gone along. Brer Fox say, says he, "Whar is de triflin' scoundrel? I seed him standin' right here. Whar is he? Whar he gone?" Ol' Miss Fox, she up wid de broom an' hit him a biff side de head dat come mighty nigh knockin' him inter one er dem j'inin' counties. "Dat's whar he is," says she, an' she fetch her ol' man a whack 'cross de backbone dat soun' like ol' Miss Jenkins a beatin' dat ol' rag carpet by hittin' it agin de fence. Ol' Brer Fox tuck a notion dat he been struck by lightnin'. He fell down an' roll over, an' by de time dat ol' Miss Fox had mighty nigh worn de broom out, he find out what wuz happenin'. He holler out, "Why, laws massy, honey, what de matter wid you? What you biffin' me fer? I ain't Brer Rabbit. Ow! Please, honey, don't bang me so hard. I ain't gwine ter do it no mo'." Ol' Miss Fox says she, "Aye, you owns up, does you? You ain't gwine do it no mo', ain't you? Now whar my fine caliker frock what de king sont me?" An' all de time she was talkin', she was whippin' him up wid de broom. Mon, de way she beat dat creetur wuz a start nat'ral scandal. Well, when Brer Fox got out'n reach, an' she kinder cooled down, she up an' tole him 'bout de caliker frock what King Lion had sont her, an' she ax him what de name er goodness is he done wid it, an' ef he ain't brung it home unbeknownst ter her, who in de dashes an' de dickenses is he gi' it to? He vow he ain't see no caliker frock, an' she 'low dat he done say, while she wuz a biffin' him, dat he ain't gwine do it no mo'. Brer Fox say he ain't know what she was beatin' him fer, an' he wuz mos' bleeze to promise not to do it no mo', 'kaze she was hurtin' him so bad. Dey put der heads tergedder, dey did, an' collogue an' confab 'bout how dey gwine ter git even wid Brer Rabbit, 'kaze de king ain't sont no fine caliker frock, an' needer is dey got de 2 fat pullets. Dar dey wuz, no frock, no pullets, an' Brer Rabbit still cuttin' up his capers an' playin' de pranks on everything an' everybody. Dey say dey wuz gwine ter ketch 'im ef it killed every cow in de island, wid a couple er steers trow'd in fer good measure. Dey wuz gwine ter hide close to de places whar he hatter pass by. Dey wuz gwine ter do dis an' dey wuz gwine ter do dat, but whatsomever dey done, dey wuz gwine ter ketch up wid Brer Rabbit. Now den, it takes 2 ter make a bargain, an' 1 mo' fer ter see dat it's done all right. Brer Rabbit, he know mighty well, none better, all de gwines on in dat part of de country, an' he make his 'rangements 'cordin'. He been used to keepin' his eyeballs skunt when all 'uz peace, but when dey was any trouble ahead, he was so nervous dat he'd kick out wid his behind foot if a weed tickled him. When it comes down to plain nervousness, he can't be beat. Brer Fox can't make a move but what Brer Rabbit would know 'bout it. He'd know when he went out an' when he went in, an' he'd keep such a close watch on 'im dat 'twuz eat about all he kin do fer ter keep Brer Fox from ketchin' him. Atter so long a timer, Brer Rabbit got tired er leadin' dis kinder life. He could 'a' put up wid it maybe a fortnight, but when it run over dat, he go plumb tired, Brer Rabbit did. Yet it look like dat luck wuz constant a runnin' his way, 'kaze he ain't been dodgin' 'roun' in de bushes tryin' fer ter keep out'n Brer Fox's way. He ain't been doin' dis mo' dan a week when dere comes word from ol' King Lion fer ter go an' see 'im. It seems like de place whar he stuck de brier in his hand wuz kyo'd up too quick, an' had done turned inter a bile, a great big un, an' it got so dat de king had ter walk de flo' all night, des like yo' pappy do when he had de toothache. Well, Brer Rabbit ain't no sooner get de word dan he run right straight ter de place where dey done de kingin' at, an' 'tain't take 'im long needer. 'Kaze I let you know, honey, when Brer Rabbit take a notion fer ter go anywhere right quick, he des picks up de miles wid his feet an' drops 'em off ag'in, des like a dog sheds fleas. He got dar, he did, an' when he see how bad de bile wuz, he kinder shuck his head an' rub his nose, des like de sho' 'nuff doctors does. He ax um whyn't dey tell 'im 'bout dis when de bile 'gun ter show, an' dey say dey been huntin' fer 'im high an' low, an' dey can't find 'im nowhere nohow. Brer Rabbit put on his specs an' 'low, "Tut, tut, tut, if dis ain't too bad! I'm fear'd dey ain't but one cure fer a place like dis. I hate might'ly ter be de 'casion of any trouble, but it look like I'm des a bleezd." King Lion kinder flinch an' frown when he hear dis, but Brer Rabbit say dat de trouble ain't fer him, but fer one er his ol' time 'quaintance. "Ef you wasn't de king," he say ter de Lion, "I'd des let you go on an' suffer, but bein' what you is, I'm bleezd ter pull ol' friendship up by de roots. Ef you want ter git well, you des hatter wrop yo' hand up in a fox hide. Not only dat, but de hide mus' be so fresh dat it's warm." Den Brer Rabbit make out he 'bout ter cry. He 'low, "I can't bar ter tell my ol' friend good bye, 'kaze we done had so many a night tergedder, up an' down an' 'roun' de worl'. De sooner you gits Brer Fox here de better, but I'll hatter ax you fer ter let me out de back way, an' I'll go off some'rs in de woods an' wonder at de flight er time an' de changes dat de years is brung." Den he bow to King Lion, he say, "De nex' time I see you, yo' hand will be well, but whar will Brer Fox be?" The king, he say, "Why, I'll sen' you de carcass." But Brer Rabbit say, "No, please don't, 'kaze I couldn't bar ter look at it. Des send it to Miss Fox. It might be some sort."
Chapter 6 of Uncle Remus Returns by Joel Chandler Harris. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Phil Chenevert. The most beautiful bird in the world. Uncle Remus and the little boy were returning from a long and leisurely walk in the woods. They had had a pretty good time, all things considered, and the old man was in high good humor. The little boy had an idea that the walk had been undertaken solely for his pleasure, and Uncle Remus allowed him to think so, but the truth was that it had a purpose behind it. The old negro wanted to locate some wild hogs that had long been devastating the growing stuff on the plantation.
The wild hogs gave him no trouble until they began to destroy stuff that he himself had planted, watermelons and sugar cane, and he argued from this that they were growing bolder and that they would have to be captured. So on this particular day he had set out to find where they had their headquarters, and he was successful. The next thing would be to take the dogs and capture them one by one, taking care not to disturb the hogs that came up to be fed every evening when the hog feeder began to call. The two companions, the old man and the little lad, had started out immediately after dinner, and dusk was falling when they returned. But neither one was weary. They had gone leisurely along, stopping occasionally to talk about the interesting things they saw, and resuming their walk whenever Uncle Remus thought the child had rested long enough. The squirrels ran noisily over the leaves that winter had flung on the ground, and went home by jumping from tree to tree. Birds that the city-raised child had never seen before flitted in the bushes, or went hopping or running on the ground. The little boy was interested in all of them, but the jo-ree seemed especially to attract his attention, and he was for stopping whenever he heard a scratching in the dead leaves and trash. The jo-ree is a very lonely bird, and you would judge that it was mortally afraid of man. But it is not so shy as its habits would lead you to believe. It is not for flying away every time it hears a noise, but will continue scratching for its food in the fence corners and under the bushes until the observer ventures too close, and then, with a cheery little trill, it will fly away. In its coat of black and brown and white, it is a very pretty bird. Its markings are peculiar, but nature has laid them on so that they harmonize effectively with its surroundings in wood and swamp. The enthusiasm of the little boy was such that Uncle Remus felt obliged to clip its wings. This he endeavored to do, not by arguing or disputing, but in a way quite characteristic. The little boy had said over and over again that the jo-ree, with its comical hop back and forth as it stirred up the leaves and trash, and its peculiar coloring, was the funniest as well as the most beautiful bird he had ever seen. "Dat bein' de case," remarked Uncle Remus with a judicial air, "you ain't never seen de Baltimere bird." "Oh, yes," said the child. "Don't you know you showed me the hanging nest and told me it was the Baltimore bird? Grandmother said it is the oriole." "She do she? Well, if she says so, I 'spect it's so, but you ain't gwine ketch me twistin' my tongue round fer to talk dat kinder outlandish talk, not me. And I know dis, dat if anybody don't want to call dat bird de Baltimere bird, dey don't hatter. I been callin' it dat a mighty long time, and you take one year wid another, and if it's yever fotch de bird any bad luck, I ain't never year tell on it. I ain't gwine to 'spute wid you, honey, but de jo-ree in his place and where he belong at, dey ain't no better ner no purtier bird. But when it comes to sayin' dat he's de purtiest er all de birds, why, dat's de way de lawyers talk when dey jowlin' in de courthouse. When it comes to de purtiest bird er all de birds, she done gone away too long ago to talk about, and nobody can't find her. She wa'n't de purtiest bird des 'cause some un says so, not her, no sir. She was purty 'cause all de yuther birds says so. Dey done signed it, dey done 'greed to it, and you can't rub it out. Dey ain't want to say so, but dey bleeze to do it. Dey wa'n't no gettin' round it. One bird ain't like de idea er sayin' dat any udder bird is purtier dan what she is, but dey bleeze to do it atter dey seen what dey seed. I ain't never seed dis purty bird myself," the old man went on, "and de next man you ax will tell you de same, but I done hear tell un 'im ef he wuz a him. Time and again I hear folks tell de tale, some one way and some another, but it all come to de same thing in de end. Dar wuz de tale.
"But what about the bird?" the little boy asked.
"Shucks, honey, ain't I des a tellin' yo' dat 'twa'n't des a plain bird? You kin say dat about all of 'em but dis'n, which she was de purtiest bird on de face er de earth. I'm kinder rattled 'bout de entitlements er dis bird, 'kaze it seem like dat dem what fus' 'gun ter tell de tale kinder got de name mixed up wid der own foolishness. Some call him de Coogly bird, some call him de Cow bird, and some call him de Cuckoo bird. Some say 'twuz a lady bird, and den agin some say 'twuz a gemman bird. By good rights she oughter been a lady bird fum de fuss she kicked up, and I bound she was. It's des like I tell you 'bout de name. Yet, call her what you please and when you please, she ain't gwine to come for your callin'. She'd 'a' come long ago if callin' would 'a' fotch her, 'kaze from dat time to dis, some er de yuther birds been hollin' an' callin' her. Dey been callin' her sence de day dat all de birds had de 'semblement, des like de white folks, an' niggers too, fer dat matter, when dey want a up an' outer man what ain't been doin' nothin' in de roun' world but gittin' pay fer settin' roun' doin' nothin'."
"Don't you mean a convention, Uncle Remus?" inquired the lad. "Papa's gone to Atlanta to attend a convention."
"Dat 'zactly what I mean, honey, 'ceppin' dat yo' daddy oughter be right here now wid his ma. But dat's needer here ner dar, ez de man says 'bout de flea what he ain't kotch. Way back yander, when de clouds wuz thicker dan what dey is now, an' when de sun ain't had to go to bed at night ter keep from bein' tired de nex' day, de time come when de creeturs, fur an' feather, ain't had much ter do, mo' speshually de birds. Dey flewed 'roun', dey did, an' fed tergedder widout fightin', an' made de houses in de trees an' on de groun', an' dey wuz all des ez sociable ez you please. But atter while dey ain't had much ter do, an' when dat time come, dey got ter wranglin' an' 'sputin' des like folks does now. One 'ud sail up an' say, 'Howdy,' an' de yuther'd 'fuse ter 'spon', an' dar dey had it. While de gentlemen birds wuz gwine on dis way, de lady birds wuz des ez busy. Dey 'sputed 'bout der feathers an' 'bout der looks, twel it seem like dey wuz gwine ter be sho' 'nuff war, 'kaze de most un um had bills an' claws. Atter while, dey find dat dis kinder doin's ain't gwine ter pay, an' so dey bowed ter one another mighty polite, an' make out dey gwine on 'bout der business. Well, dey played like dey wuz mighty busy, but dey soon got tired er dis, an' dey say to derse'f dat dey'd die if'n dey didn't run 'roun' an' have a chat wid der neighbors. An' here dey went, axin' de news an' tellin' dat what ain't news. One say she hear dat Miss Redbird up an' 'low dat she de purtiest er all de birds, an' dar dey had it, squallin', chatterin', an' squealin'. De word went 'roun', an' when it come back to whar it started, it ain't look like terse'f. 'Twuz Miss Bluebird, 'twuz Miss Jaybird, 'twuz Miss Dat an' Miss T'other. It seem like dat eve'y one un um think dat she de purtiest. Well, sir, de 'spute got so hot dat dey had ter be sump'n done. Dey wa'n't no two ways 'bout dat. Miss Wren an' Miss Bluebird an' Miss Robin put der heads tergedder an' ax how dey gwine ter stop de 'spute. Na'er one un um 'pended on der good looks, but der havishness wuz er de best, an' dey wanted ter stop de jowerin'. Dey study an' dey study, dey talk an' dey talk, but dey ain't hit on nothin'. Little Miss Wren wuz de spryest, an' she had a slice er temper wid salt an' pepper on it. Dey talk so fast an' dey talk so long dat she wuz skeered she might git sorter sassy, an' she up an' say, "Ladies, le' me make a move an' motion. Let's procrastinate dis session of our confab, 'kaze some un us mought say sump'n dat de yuthers won't like. De sun gittin' mighty low anyhow, Let's put off our colloquy 'twell tomorrow. We'll go home and ax our old men what they think, and they'll tell us what they kin. You know how men folks does. They knows everything, 'ceppin' dat they does know and dat they done forgot. They'll tell us, and when we go to bed, we can dream on it. Miss Bluebird and Miss Robin 'low dat dis de smartest thing dey ever is heard, and dey 'gree to what little Miss Wren say. Dey put on der things and marched off home fer to feed de chillun and put 'em to bed. Bright and early de next mornin', dey met at de same place, and atter dey got over de gigglin' and de howdy doin', dey start up de confab where dey lef off. Miss Robin say she can't think of a blessed thing. She say dat when she axed her old man 'bout it, he up and 'lowed dat she better jine him in huntin' bugs fer de chillun fer to play with, 'stid er gaddin' from post to pillar. And de others raise der wings and say, "Well, well," and "Who'd 'a' thunk it?" Miss Bluebird 'low dat when she ax her old man 'bout it, he say she better stay at home 'stid er gwine 'roun' spreadin' scandaliciousness thoo de neighborhood. Miss Wren kinder hunged her head like she 'shamed fer to tell 'bout her 'spearance. She say dat her old man was monstrous sassy twel she told him dat if he want to change his boardin' house he was mo' dan welcome. Wid dat, he whirled and asked her why in de name of goodness don't she 'suade 'em fer to have a big 'sembly of all de ladybirds at some place or 'nother, where dey'll have plenty of room, where dey kin all march 'round and let somebody pick out de purtiest in de whole crowd, and den, when dat's done, all de balance of 'em must be put under de needcessity of 'greein' to what de picker picks. If he say de owl is de purtiest, den all de yuther birds got to say so too. If he say de buzzard is de purtiest, dat's de way it got to be. "La me," says Miss Robin, "did you yever hear de beat?" Miss Bluebird 'low, "Now ain't dat des like a man?" You may not believe it, but the three took up wid de idea, and when dey talked it over wid de balance of de lady birds, all of 'em say it's des fine, and dey took up wid it quicker dan a cat kin smell a mackerel layin' on de shelf. De funny thing about de whole business was dat dey had to have 2 cymbalments.
That certainly was funny, said the little boy so seriously that Uncle Remus closed his eyes and sighed. He never could reconcile himself to the fact that the little child could be almost as old-fashioned as a grown person. "Yasser," the old man continued, "dey had 2 cymbalments. De 'greement was dat all de ladybirds, of all kinds and color, was to be dar, and all was to march by de place where de one dey had chosen fer to pick out de purtiest was to be settin' at. De one dey chosen was ol' Brer Rabbit, so dat de sayin' mought come true, when you chosen a creetur, des shun de bird eater. In dem days de doctor done tole Brer Rabbit dat de best eatin' fer him was honey and clover and sweet barley, and he was stickin' to dat kinder doin's. When de time come fer de fust cymbalment, Brer Rabbit was right on de spot wid a fresh plug of terbacker and a pocket full of honey bee clover. De birds all come, des like dey say dey would, and when some un 'em motioned to Brer Rabbit fer to say de word, dey 'gun to march round and round, one by one and two by two. Dey ain't been marchin' long 'fo' Brer Rabbit shuck his head and sot down again. "La, Brer Rabbit," dey say, "what de matter? We er all here. Whyn't you pick out de purtiest? We ain't gwine to peck yo' eyes out." "I dunno so well 'bout dat," says ol' Brer Rabbit, sezee. "You say you er all here, but if I got my 2 eyes, you ain't all here. No, ladies, you hatter 'scusen me," and wid dat he riz up, he did, and make such a nice bow dat ol' Miss Swamp Owl's mouf
gun to water. Dey say, "Lawsy mussy, who's missing?" Brer Rabbit he 'low, "Well, Miss Coo Coo Bird, I put on my specs, but I can't see her. Is she round here anywhars?" Dey looked all round, in de corners and under de bushes where anybody mought hide, but dey ain't find de Coo Bird. An' a mighty good reason, 'kase she wa'n't dar, let 'em hunt where dey would and search where dey might. Den Brer Rabbit up and 'low, "Ladies all, we please ter procrastinate dish yer 'semblement and put it off twel you kin send word ter de Coo Bird, 'kase you can't do nothin' 'tall widout her. She got ter be in, or she won't bide by de choosement. You des please ter git her in here ef you gwine ter stop disputin'. Dey ain't no two ways 'bout dat." Den dey all 'gun ter look at one another and giggle and make a great 'miration 'bout how sharp Brer Rabbit was. Some say dat dey don't think dat de Coo Bird is wuth foolin' wid, 'kase she ain't no great shakes nohow. But dey bleeze ter have her in de crowd when de 'semblement 'sembles, 'kase dey ain't no yuther way fer ter stop de jowerin'. All de birds wuz bleeze ter be dere. Well, time went on des like it do now, an' ef der wuz any diffunce, mealtime came a right smart sooner den dan it do now. Durin' de time 'twix' de 'semblement what hatter be called off an' de nex' un dat wuz ter come, de ladybirds had a scrumptious time. Dey went callin' on der neighbors, an' dem dat dey ain't find at home dey'd hunt up. There was mo' backbitin' dan you could shake a stick at, an' de chatter went on so long an' so loud dat you couldn't hear yo' own years. Miss Peafowl called on Brer Rabbit an' asked how she was gwine ter come out in de parade, an' Brer Rabbit say dat she'd have a mighty good chance ef 'twasn't fer her footses an' her scaly legs. He 'low dat ef she come dar wid dem, she won't have no show at all, an' dar dey had it, up an' down. An' 'twuz de same wid all un um. Dey tried fer ter make ol' Brer Rabbit, which he wuz gwine fer ter be de judge, look at 'em thoo dey own eyes. While all dis wuz goin' on, dey wuz huntin' up de Coo Bird, an' atter so long a time, dey found her right whar dey mought 'a' found her at first, stayin' at home an' lookin' atter de housekeepin'. But 'twuz a mighty quare thing 'bout de Coo Bird. She ain't got a rag er clothes ter her back. Where de feathers oughter been, der wa'n't nothin' but a little bit er downy fuzz. When dey find her, dey say, "Why ain't you come ter de 'semblement, where dey gwine ter choosin' de purtiest of all de bird tribe?" She 'low, "La, I got sump'n else ter do 'sides tryin' ter find out who de purtiest. An' mo' dan dat, how I gwine ter come when I ain't got no clothes ter war? No, ma'am, you hatter 'scusin' me. Go on an' parade yo' bully for'ard, an' I'll parade at home." Den dey try ter tell her dat dey bleeze ter have her dar, so dey'll all be satchified, but she shook her head an' went on cleanin' her house. Dey swaited an' bimeby she say dat ef dey'll loan her some clothes among um, she'll go. Ef dey don't, well an' good, she won't budge a step. An' so dar 'twuz. Well, all de yuther birds kinder collegued tergedder, an' dey say dey better loan her some clothes. Dey went 'roun' an' got a feather fum every bird, an' fum some un um, too. Ol' Miss Ostrich, no, she ain't stan' no chance in de parade wid her bony neck an' long legs, an' she sont de Coo Bird a bunch er de purtiest feathers you ever is laid eyes on. When de time come fer de 'semblement, Miss Coo wuz dar an' dressed up fit ter kill, an' when dey all 'gun ter march, she wuz at de head er de crowd an' stepped along as gaily as you please. Well, der wasn't no two ways 'bout it. Miss Coo wuz way yonder de purtiest er de whole gang. De way she look, de way she walk, de way she hol' herse'f, the way she bow and salute 'em all, everything put her in the front place. Brer Rabbit stood up, he did, and wave his hand, and they all stopped still. Den he say dat there ain't no doubt and no suspicions but what Miss Cuckoo Bird was the purtiest of all the birds, and they all 'gree wid him. Den they was to have a dance, but 'fo' the music struck up, Miss Cuckoo say dey must please excusin' her, and wid dat she slipped into de bushes and was gone, done gone, gone for good. And dey ain't nobody seed her from dat day till dis, lessen maybe old Brer Rabbit, and he ain't tellin' nobody 'bout it. De yuther birds hunt fer her, but dey can't find her, and dey a huntin' plumb twel yet, huntin' everywhar and callin' as dey hunt. Dey do say dat when de big owl hollers, he ain't askin' who cooks fer you, he sayin' coo-coo, coo-coo, where you at? And the turtle dove hollers, coo-coo, 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 coo-coo. And e'en down to the rooster, callin' out 'fo' day and all through the night, please fetch my feather back. And so dar you is. Cuckoo Bird done flewed away, and all de yuther birds huntin' fer him. And dey tells me, remarked Uncle Remus after a pause, dat when folks think de birds is pickin' deyselves and straightenin' out der feathers, dey ain't doin' nothin' in de roun' world but seein' if dey one what dey loaned de Cuckoo Bird is done growed back. The little boy made no comment, but seemed to be waiting for the story to end. The old negro threw back his head and, in a sing-song tone, made this announcement. Jig. Chapter 7 of Uncle Remus Returns by Joel Chandler Harris. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Phil Chenevert. Uncle Remus falls a victim to the mumps. During the recent bad spell of weather, Uncle Remus had been missing, but everybody about the Constitution office had concluded that his absence was due to a frequently expressed intention to take better care of himself hereafter. Yesterday, however, the well-known thump of his walking cane was heard upon the stair, and the young men in the editorial room hastily adopted a plan suggested by the agricultural editor to pretend that they had entirely forgotten the old man. When he opened the door, therefore, everybody was busily engaged in reading or writing. The office boy, however, who seemed to be oblivious to all schemes of amusement, save those which culminate in a pass to a minstrel entertainment, frustrated the plan by exclaiming, as the colored sage entered, "Goodness, look at Uncle Remus!" The old man's head was enveloped in several folds of red flannel, a huge woolen comforter was wrapped around his neck, and the expansive collar of his overcoat was turned up and closely buttoned. His appearance was a sufficient excuse for the exclamation of the boy. As a usual thing, when Uncle Remus comes in, there is an air of conciliation about him quite impossible to define. But yesterday he appeared to be indignant as well as disgusted. The young men attacked him with a running fire of raillery, but he scorned to make reply. Finally, the agricultural editor, who had been composing a paragraph about flowers, turned around and remarked, "Well, how are you? What have you been up to now?" "Hush!" exclaimed another of the young men in a loud whisper. "Don't trouble him. Wait until he gets sober." "Sho'ly hit ain't come down to dat pass," said Uncle Remus, moving his feet uneasily, "dat a crippled nigger like me can't creep up hyar and squat down 'fo' de fire to get de frost off'n his hands, less he up and make a speech." "Oh, you be fiddled!" flung out the agricultural editor, somewhat testily. "Can't anybody inquire about your health?" Was you asking about my health, boss?" replied Uncle Remus, relaxing a little. "'Cause if you was, then I ain't got none. You all young mens des better dip the ends of yo' finger in de paste pot and go on wid yo' editor wucks tellin' folks de news. You ain't got no time fer to be foolin' longer no old nigger like me." Uncle Remus had no idea that he was hurling a gall-tipped javelin into the editorial camp, but the evident discomfiture of the young men caused him to thaw out a little, and he even went so far as to give vent to a half-smothered chuckle. "What has been the matter with you?" the agricultural editor asked. "I'm gwine tell you de naked truth, boss," said the old man, with a sigh that ended in a deep groan. "I been sick. I been mighty sick. I disremember de time when I been any mo' sicker dan what I been endurin' dis past month. Hit done got so now," Uncle Remus went on, "dat no epidemy don't strike de town dat it don't light right spring bang onter me and tromple me down. Year or two gone by, hit was de measles, and now, bless gracious, hit's de mumps." This announcement was the signal for a chorus of derisive laughter from the young men, but Uncle Remus, having become good-humored, was undisturbed. He rubbed his hands together and gazed into the grate with a quizzical expression that seemed to linger somewhere very near the edge of melancholy. "Hit's des like I tell you," he continued after a while. "Little while ago de measles, and now de mumps. Next time you hear from me, I'll be breaking out wid de rash, and den atter dat I'll hatter get in winter quarters and cut some new toofies. When a nigger done stand flat-footed and seed nigh onto 80 year go by, but get strucken wid de mumps, den hit done got time fer to lay in doctor truck by de carload. Ain't you never been cotch up wid de mumps, boss?" "Not that I know of," responded the agricultural editor in a matter-of-fact way. "How do they break out?" "Well, den, if you ain't never had 'em, boss, you don't want to be brushin' up 'gin me, 'cause dese yer kin what strucken me, dey're owdacious mumps. Dey're scandalous mumps. I year talk dat some folks ain't have no mo' dan one mump, but dese yer what I got, dey's twinses, and dey cotch hold to me like dey done practice on some yuther nigger dat got mo' strengt dan what I is. You see me sittin' yer now, but if you'd 'a' seed me las' Chuesday was a week, you'd 'a' hilt up yo' hands and ax if dat was de same Remus. Dey're sorter swunk up and swag down now," continued the old man, feeling his jaws suspiciously, "but dey tracks is dar yet." "How do they come?" "Hit 'uz about de time dat de fust snow what we had, and I was eatin' my dinner what Miss Sally done put up where de yuther niggers can't git it, when I year 'em holler from de dinin' room fer me to make haste dar and clean up de snow what done pile up on de front steps. Dat make me work my jaws mo' livelier, and right den and dar sump'n look like it hurted me in de neighborhoods of de burr of de year, up dar where de jawbone hinge at, and I say to myself, I bound I done gone and cotch up wid de uralgy from Marse John, which many's de time I year him marchin' up and down de flo' like he drillin' a whole company of mens. Fust my jaw hurted, and den agin hit ain't, and atter I done lick up de vittles, I goes and I shovels off de snow, and den I hustles into de fire, and whiles I was settin' dar toastin' my shins, I puts my hand dar behind my year, and she feels so tender hit make me flinch. Dis was de beginnin's. Nex' mornin' when I goes to git up, look like dey's a crick in my neck, and I feel of my jaw, and bless yo' soul, dey was a lump growin' in dar twixt de bone and de gristle, mos' big as a scaly bark. Dat sorter scared me, 'kase hit look like one er dese here widenin' winds done gone to housekeepin' 'long wid me. But I ain't sayin' nothin', and de nex' mornin' der was anudder one sproutin' in de t'er jaw. Dis yer sorter took de stiffenin' outen me, and right atter breakfast I goes and I lays de case 'fo' Miss Sally." Here Uncle Remus paused, reflected a moment, laughed loudly, and continued in a tone of undisguised admiration. "Dat woman! If she ain't de outdoin'est white woman 'twix' dis an' de United States, den I ain't name Remus. I went in dar an' I tell Miss Sally 'bout dem wens, an' she drap her sewin' an' rustle past me, an' den I year in de pantry. Den she rustle back an' she shet de do' an' stand up 'gin it. An' den she tuck a knife an' gun ter peel a great big yaller lemon. Den I stand, an' dar she stand. She peel, an' I look at her. She peel, an' I look at her. Atter she done peel it, she tuck an' turn it roun' an' roun' an' look at it. An' den what in de name er goodness you speck dat white 'oman do? Des ez sholy ez I'm settin' yer, Miss Sally tuck an' cut a great big slice off'n dat lemon an' put it in her mouf, an' boss, right dar's whar I caved. De peelin' I could stan', but when I see Miss Sally put dat slice er lemon in her mouf, an' when I hear her chomp down on it, it look like to me dat my jaw'd drap off spite er all I could do. Miss Sally, she ain't bat her eye, but I stood dar, I did, an' slobbered at de mouf, same ez one er deze mules what been eatin' rackweed. An' den on top er dat, when it seem like she done wid her prankin', out she go, she do, an' yer she come wid one er deze yer great long cowcumber pickle, an' she chaw dat up, an' den she wipe her hands on her apron, an' she up an' say she, "Why, you ole Haytian, you got de mumps," says she. An' den she tells me dat if I don't get in my own house an' stay dar, she'll have me slap in de calaboose, an' den she shove her hand in her apron pocket, an' I knows when she do dat she talkin' wid de bark on. "I raised Miss Sally from a gal," concluded Uncle Remus. But Chapter 8 of Uncle Remus Returns by Joel Chandler Harris. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Phil Chenevert. Uncle Remus's Views on Church Collections. The Reverend James Henry preaches to a large colored congregation in Atlanta, and he is not only respected by his own race, but by the whites as well. He is energetic, persistent, and devout, and in the midst of it all, he manages to keep an eye on Uncle Remus, in whose spiritual welfare he manifests great interest. Uncle Remus is many years older than the Reverend James Henry, and his attitude toward the preacher is one of paternal respect. The old man, however, is accustomed to listen to the lectures of his young friend with an air of listless and patient indifference, which, when Uncle Remus's restless and fiery disposition is taken into consideration, is the next thing to dramatic art of a very high order, if dramatic art lies anywhere in the neighborhood of simulation. Recently the two met on a street corner. Brother James Henry was going forth upon a mission connected with the church, while Uncle Remus was gazing anxiously at the cloudy skies. "Bless you, Brother Remus!" exclaimed the preacher by way of salutation. "How you come on this mighty long time?" "Middlin', Brer James Henry, des middlin'. I'm some'ers 'twixt de po' and de doctor shop, yet I'm glad from my heart dat 'tain't no wuss." "That's what I tells 'em all, Brother Remus. They ought to be thankful for what they've got. I hope soon to see you workin' in de vineyard, Brother Remus. The harvest is waitin', and the labor few." "Dat's so, Brer James Henry. I stands with you dar, sho. But de most what dis ole cripple nigger like me kin do dish kinder weather is to set down and wait for watermelon time. All the same, Brother Remus, de master's work is got to be done." "I ain't 'sputin' dat, Brer James Henry. and I ain't gwine dispute it. 'Cause when I sees you paradin' round and promenadin' up and down with your standing collar stickin' up, and your stove-pipe hat a-shinin', and your black frock coat a-floppin', then it seems like to me I done missed my callin'. How's that, Brother Remus? It's just dis way, Brer Jeems Henry. When my bag of meal run dry and my little rasher of bacon disappear from the cupboard, where I gwine get any mo' 'ceppin' I sail out and scuffle round atter it? And yet, if I was stoopin' up'ards in yo' shoes, Brer Jeems Henry, dey ain't kin be much of a scuffle." "How so, Brother Remus?" asked the preacher with an uneasy smile. "Monsters easy, Brer Jeems Henry, monsters easy. I'd 'tend a speunce meetin' like ternight, and let drap a hint, and den I'd 'tend a pra'r meetin' like day atter termorrer night, and let drap an'er hint. By Sunday meetin' time, de scheme 'ud be plumb ripe, and den I'd rise up and rap de congregation to order and line out, 'Ye livin' mens, come view de ground,' and under cover of dat, I'd send round de contribution plate, and I'd boun you, de next time folks come visitin' round me, dey'd be a bag of meal and a rasher of bacon and a jug of 'lasses in the cupboard. Dat dey would, honey." "You doin' us both injustice when you talk in dat style, Brother Remus," said the preacher. "To de contraries of dat, Brer Jeems Henry," responded Uncle Remus. "I ain't mixed both of us up in it. I des been tellin' you 'bout de pograms what a no-count old nigger named Remus would 'a' laid out, providin' dat his streak of luck had 'a' been de length and breadth of your'n." At this point, Brother Jeems Henry concluded to change the subject. "Well, I wish you'd come down to class meeting next Sunday, Brother Remus. A lady from Liberia is expectin' to make a little talk. She's at my house now, and you might come down and get acquainted with her." "Bless yo' soul, Brer Jeems Henry, my womanin' days is done gone. I seen de time, and 'tain't been so mighty long ago now, when I'd des jump at de chance fer to call on dish yer lady, and hit 'a done yo' heart good fer to see me sidlin' round her like blue pigeon on top of de barn. But dat time done pass and gone. Ain't dish yer lady," continued the old man, "ain't dish yer lady got a 'scription paper 'long wid her?" "I don't know if she ain't, Brother Remus," replied Brother Jeems Henry, after a pause. "Ahee! Dat what I 'lowed. She got a 'scription paper, and she hail from some society n'er, way off yon what nobody ain't never hear talkin', and she'll get up dar before you all, with her bouquet and coffee weeds and pepper pods, and she'll nat'ally entrance you with the niceness of dat country. And den, lo and beholds, by and by she'll out wid dat 'scription paper, and she'll up and say dat, bein' as how dem folks cross dar gettin' on mighty po'ly wid de coffee weeds and de pepper pods, she hope and trust dat everybody'll fling in somethin', if 'tain't nothin' but a trip. And den Brer Rassel'll slap his hand to his jaw and raise de tune, and de money'll rattle and jingle, and de next town what dat lady strike, she'll hit it wid a brand-new bonnet. No use to tell me, Brer Jeems Henry, I done been dar. I done been seasoned wid 'em." Brother Jeems Henry here consulted an immense silver watch, while Uncle Remus went on, "No, Brer Jeems Henry, if you see dat lady and she ax atter me by name, you up and tell her dat I sont her howdy, but don't go no furder. Des take yo' stand 'pon dat. Den, if she take and press de question, take off yo' hat and tell her dat whiles you was roamin' roun', you met up wid a ole nigger what got mo' gray hairs dan he is money, and dis ole nigger he up and 'lowed, he did, dat if 'tain't no furder from de meetin' house to de chicken coop in dat Liberia's country dan what 'tis in dis yer United State of Georgia, den dey's lots trouble all round de world. Gi' her dat and let her go." As the preacher, smiling in spite of himself,
turned to go forth upon his mission. He was followed by the sonorous voice of Uncle Remus. "Put my name in your—" Chapter 9 of Uncle Remus Returns by Joel Chandler Harris. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Phil Chenevert. Uncle Remus's Political Theories. "This looks like spring," said one of the young men of the editorial staff as Uncle Remus ambled into the Constitution office with a basket of poke salad on his arm. The old man smiled a serious smile as he deposited his basket and his bundles on the floor. "Hit's barely a glimpse, boss, but he'll make the old woman 'member dat hit's 'bout time fer to rustle round and look atter her collard patch." Thereupon the old man sat down upon the coal box, took off his hat, fished a bandana from its depths, and proceeded to mop his face. He was evidently in a reflective mood. Finally he said, "I year Marse John reading to Miss Sally dat dey're kickin' up a monstrous racket up dar in Congress, 'stead of bein' to home workin' 'longside their neighbors." "Hit de same old rumpus, ain't it, boss, dat been gwine on ever since de farmin' days was over?" "Yes, exactly the same." The old man chuckled complacently, shifted his feet around, and went on, "De nigger in de woodpile, dey put him in dar, and now dey dunno how to git him out. Dey flung de wood fuss on one side de fence, and den on de udder, and den dey hove it roun' de yard, but de nigger he in dar, and dar he gwine to stay. Hit's my idee dat he ain't playin' no favorites dis season." "Well, at any rate, the negroes are still in politics," remarked one of the young men. "Dey mought be, and den agin dey moughtn't," replied Uncle Remus. "But dey ain't a-votin' wid de looseness dat dey useter. Dey gittin' sorter stuck up about der privileges, dese niggers is. As fer me, I done find out what my politics is, and I'm a-stickin' unto a same as a rusty-back lizard to de sunny side of de fence rail." "Well, how do you stand, Uncle Remus?" "You see, boss, hit like dis. A man what I dunno from Adam's saddle hoss come 'long and say, 'Look yer, old man, dish yer fight's a fight where yo' interests is mixed up. Hit's yo' bounden duty to vote wid de Republicans, 'kase de white folks will have you strung back up into slavery 'fo' you kin bat yo' eyes.' Dat what de man say. Den I ax Marse John how he make it all out, and Marse John, he say, 'Remus, you villainous old sinner, dar's a pot of greens and a pone of cornbread out dar in de kitchen waitin' fer you. I ain't got no time to talk politics now.' But bless yo' heart and soul, honey, der was mo' politics in dat pot of greens and dat ar pone of cornbread dan what I ever is seed roun' de courthouse when de niggers was rampin' roun' votin' fer folks what dey ain't knowed 'ceppin' 'longside and hearsay. Hit don't make no difference wid me which a ways a man drops his arguments when he's a browsin' roun' on de edges, but when he get down to business, he des gotta rub sump'n under my nose what smells like Marse John's pot of greens and Miss Sally's biled ham. De argument what got a smoke house and a Chapter 10 of Uncle Remus Returns by Joel Chandler Harris. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Phil Chenevert. Uncle Remus discusses the true inwardness of the mule. "I year Miss Sally readin' dis mornin' 'bout a man what went and git his face smashed wid de mule," said Uncle Remus to the agricultural editor. "I disremembers de name, but de paper say de mule come mighty nigh gettin' into his best licks." "Cadle is the man's name," he was told. "Dat de identical name?
I took and told Miss Sally den dat I spec he was a white man, and a mule something a nigger ain't got no business foolin' longer, let alone a white man. White man kin learn joggraphy and 'rithmetic and all dat, but 'tain't in the course of nature for him to learn the mule, and it's mighty few niggers that gets a mule by heart. On Massa John's place in Putnam County, I plowed a gray mule mighty nigh 6 year, and at the very last minute she reached out her left behind foot and picked the brass breastpin off my clothes. And yet I had my eye peeled for that mule enduring the whole blessed time. 'Twa'n't long after that I was sorter strucken with the pleurisy, and a smart Aleck nigger got hold of my mule. He put the gear on her and lipped on her back fer to ride her to the new ground. Leastways, dat what he 'lowed, and he didn't get out in the lot gate."
"Why not? What was the matter?" asked the agricultural editor.
You ax Marsa John, and he'll tell you that right den and dar he lose a $700 nigger.
"How was that?"
"De exhibition was mighty private. There wasn't no great to do. Hit all took place just 'fore day in the morning. De overseer he was standing at the gate watching de hands pass, and he say he hear a little noise in the lot what sound like somebody a scuffling and a scrambling. When he went fer to examine into de racket, he find de smart Aleck what I was tellin' you 'bout doubled up under de trough, all mixed up with de britchin', and de trace chains wrapped all round him."
"Where was the mule?"
"Oh, de mule! Dat mule was fast asleep. She done gone and forget all 'bout de 'musement. 'Peared like it might 'a' happened de year before, for all she knowed 'bout it."
"Was the colored man really dead?"
"Dat what dey say, and he ain't never 'sputed it yet, and dat been nigh on to more'n 30 year ago. Don't tell me. I knows 'bout dese mules. White folks better keep outen their way, and if a nigger ain't mighty polite in his movements, dey'll catch."
Chapter 11 of Uncle Remus Returns by Joel Chandler Harris. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Phil Chenevert. Uncle Remus talks of hard times and sunshine niggers. Uncle Remus and the old man Plato met recently at the Atlanta passenger depot and compared notes.
"Dese is mighty hard times, Brother Remus. You're whoopin' now, honey, and they're gettin' harder. De man that gets $1 dese days is got to own limber hisself sho's you born. He got to get round, same as if he was at the camp meetin' wrastle."
"Dat's what I calls knockin' at the front door," said old Uncle Plato, by way of expressing his hearty assent.
"De time done come, Brer Plato," continued Uncle Remus, "when niggers ain't got none de 'vantage of po' white folks. Some of 'em I notices kin sit in de sun and get fat, but wid me it's a scuffle and a scramble from day's end to day's end, and I'm monstrous glad when night comes if I got a slice of bacon rind fer to grease my stomach wid. Some of dese yer niggers, Brer Remus, what stands around and suns deyself, look like dey got rich kinfolks summers. No use fer to lose no sleep 'bout dem kinfolks, Brer Plato. If 'twasn't for dese sunshine niggers, de chain gang wouldn't be able fer to dig a post hole. It'd be mighty nigh as weak as de toddy what Mars John's fixed fer de baby. Niggers don't fatten on no sunshine. An' year de hens cacklin' and a squallin', you kin des put it down to dat one of dese yer sunshine niggers is makin' his livin', an' if a policeman happen fer to saunter up, dar's anudder candidate fer de chain gang." "You're chawin' gov'ment terbacker now, Brer Remus," responded Uncle Plato,